Hi, folks. Happy Football New Year to everyone. We're here for the draft show, our draft stream of all 3 days. Excited as hell about this. And for day one here, we're going to be joined by Coach Derek of All 22 Films. He has some camera problems, so he'll be the voice from above for much of this. You'll be seeing my face, unfortunately, along with some others who will be joining later. And we're looking forward to a great day of Ravens-centric, great night of Ravens-centric draft coverage. And we're not focused in on anybody's socks, not what anybody had for breakfast. We don't really care about personality stories behind any of the top picks. We want to know, how does each pick impact the Baltimore Ravens? And where should the Ravens be looking in terms of trading up, trading back, etc. Coach, great to have you on. I'm sorry we can only have you on by voice, but that apparently is the issue with the camera. How's life treating you?
Good, man. Good. First of all, thanks for having me on again. I don't know if I can do one of your patented 6-hour podcasts, but thankfully the draft doesn't last that long. So I'm looking forward to it, man. It feels like Christmas morning. I know for all football fans across the country, but for Ravens fans, we unfortunately got to wait maybe until the end of tonight's draft to see what we get. Right.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like this could be a pretty long night. We've had a couple. I had one with Michael Crawford that went a long time, and love talking football with Michael, so that's usually never an issue. But it went almost 4 hours that year, I believe. I think this year, because of a lot of the needs for teams wanting to trade up for offensive tackles, we could see a lot of slowdown in this draft between picks 10 and about 28 in terms of people taking the full amount of clock. And if that were true, 10 to 28 can take you 3 hours all by itself.
Absolutely.
At 10 minutes a pick. So.
No, I agree, because I think there will be a lot of options for certain teams there, to trade back or to consider. I'm sure that, those guys have done their contingency calls already. Hey, if this player is available at 14, we're going to call you, and understanding that other teams will be calling too. The Christmas, present scenario or comparison was apt for me, because I was always the type of kid that, like, I'd watch my brothers and sisters open up all their gifts first, and then I'd do mine last. So I'm used to this dynamic, us having to wait, until the end. It's going to be a long night, but it's going to be fun. I don't know about you, but I made sure to get a nap, so I had plenty of energy for this evening.
I hate to admit it, but I'm at that age where I often need a nap in the middle of the day, and I'm very sleep deprived anyway, normally. So anyway, life is good. I'm ready. If I can't keep my adrenaline level up to the end of this draft, we'd really have a serious problem. We're going to bring in some other folks now to join us here as the picks start to come in here. I have not heard. I guess Chicago is on the clock right now, aren't they? No, they're not yet, because I'm not seeing it on the map. Couple rules here, folks. We don't tip any picks live. Okay, we don't tip any picks. We're watching the NFL Network feed, and part of the fun of this is we all have this organic experience together, see our reactions, and have that all recorded. Our producer is going to be joining us in a few minutes. He's going to be doing some work behind the scenes to make sure video is ready of these picks, and then when that occurs, we'll be in good shape to have video ready to go. But for right now, wait on the picks, and when they get announced, I'll probably call them out, and then we're free to go crazy, comments, questions, whatever it might be. We want a very interactive experience tonight, so everybody's over in those comments. I see lots of stuff over there already. We're going to be clicking on those and bringing them up to the screen and try to address those questions as they come in. Comments are fine too, by the way. You don't have to have a question. That's kind of a thing I always want to make sure we're doing. We're going to bring in two other panelists tonight. Real excited about that. We're going to start right now by adding Josh Reed. Josh, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ken. How you doing?
Happy to have you. You did the Edge board with me earlier, the 10-1 countdown. I know we had some differences at the top. Have you changed your mind on Leatu Latu with the recent medicals?
No, man, he's still my guy. He's still number one edge for me. Yeah, I'll be curious to see how far he falls, if at all, tonight.
All right, very good. Josh is former power lifter himself and had some interesting comments about the relationship between arm length and number of reps on the bench. So shorter arms, you can do more bench reps more easily, correct?
Yeah. The longer your arms are, the harder it's going to be for you to get to throw around as much weight.
All right. Lots of
Especially the more reps you put up too, right?
Yep. The longer arms you have, the fewer reps you usually put up.
Yep, perfect point. Agreed, Josh. This is Coach DC from All 22. I don't have my picture on the screen for you guys, but thanks for joining us in, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Do appreciate. David Sullivan says, could Bateman deal impact the likelihood of a trade for wide receiver? I'm already think it's unlikely, but curious if a Bateman deal is another factor. What do you think, Coach?
I mean, does it impact it? Yes. Does it limit the options? No, I don't think it limits the options. Especially has the salary figure actually been quoted at this point, or is it still rumored to be 3 for 15?
Yeah, I haven't heard it, and I really doubt it's that low. So
yeah, that seems incredibly low, doesn't it?
Yeah. He had a poor year last year. So 6.6 yards per target, 64 quarterback rating throwing to him. Didn't really seem to have Lamar's trust. And I think some of that's on Lamar. Maybe some of it's on Monken in terms of the deep ball getting consistently overthrown to him. Whereas, Beckham, who's a less mobile receiver at this point, doesn't have nearly the speed that a Bateman has, was getting some contested catch opportunities. Lamar was trusting him to go get the football when he was one-on-one with somebody. So that was a little disappointing, I thought. And the 2.0 yak per reception for Bateman was a big disappointment. But that said, great, best route runner on the team, best pure route runner. And I'm really hopeful he can have a big year.
I think Alex just kind of touched on it right here in the chat. If the contract was that low, he becomes a lot more compelling as a trade chip. I mean, yes, that's one of the thoughts that I had. First of all. Second of all, it also was something where I was like, okay, we're probably not in on receiver early in this draft as a result, because Bateman's going to get, I mean, let's be honest, him and OBJ for a lot of last year split snaps. They split reps. There was not a ton of times where I think it was 182 snaps, maybe 202, somewhere around there where they were on the field at the same time. So you're generally talking about they were splitting snaps from a front office standpoint to double those guys up with their injury history. Okay, looking back, it makes sense because if one of them goes down, you have the other guy available. This year, it makes more sense, if you ask me, to just go all in on one of them.
Yeah. Oh, can't hear you, Ken.
Thank you very much. I'll answer Kevin's questions really quickly. Yes, he signed through 2026. It is a 2-year extension, essentially. It's a subtle difference whether or not he's playing on his rookie contract still, because I'm sure they gave him signing bonus that will impact the cap figure for 2024. So I have not, again, heard exactly the numbers there. I'm also certain there'd be incentives in a deal like this. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was 16 or 18 million of total new money, maybe a little bit less, with incentives that could take it to, into the low 20s at least.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely impact their draft strategy as far as like, I think the odds of them taking the receiver in the first round, dramatically, decrease. But as far as them coming out of the receiver, coming away with this receiver in the first 3 picks, I wouldn't rule it out.
Important point, Alex, and I'm glad you brought this up. The Ravens never picked up the 5th-year option on Bateman, which is very significant because the deal was made before that option was picked up, which almost certainly means the Ravens have no interest in picking up that 5th-year option and the expense that goes with it, which was about $13 million. So yes, in terms of how much control they had over the player, they gained an extra year, but they did it at much less cost, I would expect, than the 5th-year option cost.
Seems pretty smart, if you ask me, for both sides, because it almost sounds like at some point the Ravens approached Bateman and said, hey, would you like a raise for this year? Because essentially that's what we're talking about, right? Based on whatever his salary was going to be for 2024. It's certainly been increased, whether it's 3 for 15, 3 for 18. His 2020, I mean, all of us can think of the jobs we've had. If someone came to you and said, hey, would you like a raise for this year upcoming? And you've already put in all of your work from last year. From a Bateman standpoint, is it team friendly? Sure, fine. It's also a raise for him for this year. So I think it's smart from Bateman's standpoint, to be honest with you. He gets short-term security. I guess at this point you have to call that short-term. And it secures him as a Ravens starting receiver for 2 or 3 years in an offense that does spread the ball around. Let's be honest, this is a spread offense. So he's not going to get 120 targets, 75 to 85 targets, maybe 90, probably appropriate in that window. And then his catch percentage has got to improve. I think it's 56, 58%, somewhere around there for last year. So that's certainly got to improve.
That's half of the yards per target component. So that definitely needs to improve. He also needs to catch some deep balls. He needs to get some yak. All three of those are important ways to improve his yards per target number. But I think there is an important concern as to why this was done here, because with Bateman signing now, I can see the advantages to Bateman in terms of job security, in terms of getting the 5th-year option dealt with from a divisible benefit standpoint, meaning he wasn't going to get all that money. He guarantees that he gets some of that money and he's here for 3 years. And also probably to give the Ravens the peace of mind, meaning from Bateman's perspective, this is a positive, that they don't have to go out and draft a wide receiver with their first pick. Now they still might, because I don't think that rules it out. But I think from the Ravens' perspective, the only gain I can see to announcing this early or to doing it early is in the dollars of reduction and the dollars of divisible benefit they get on Bateman's contract. So I think their motivations are purely economic versus value versus play, whereas Bateman's are more in terms of job security and how can I make sure I get a portion of the money that I wasn't going to get.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. I don't really pay attention to other teams' contracts. I'll be honest with you, I don't pay attention to the Ravens' contracts a ton. But it makes me wonder, is this happening at the wide receiver position for other teams? Like this situation where a receiver facing the decision by the franchise whether or not to extend him or not, or do the 5th-year option, decides to sign him at something that can be viewed as below market value for those receivers in that position. I don't know if it has occurred recently. To my memory, I can't recall one.
I want to address Anthony Game's comment here that he saw a PFF thing today saying that the separation grade was up there with Hill, Wilson, and Olave. There are multiple ways or multiple times at which you can measure separation. What I'll say is everybody is dealing with the same XY coordinate data that the NFL has from the helmet or the shoulder pad sensors, I should say, and the data used for everything they do, including the big data bowl, next gen stats, etc. Everybody's working with that same information. What they're doing is they're measuring separation at different times. And he had a very good separation metric I've seen from PFF. I don't know how they measure it. He had another one that I saw. I thought it was on next gen stats, but it might have actually been something else where his separation was in the 30th percentile. So it's a really odd combination, and it might be at the top of the stem and at the catch point. It could be a lot of different things. So what I'll say is it's not easy to measure separation. You need a very clear definition about what it is.
I think it's going to be inconsistent. It depends on who's measuring. First of all, I agree with you. You're absolutely right. I think it's going to be inconsistent. It depends on who's measuring it. And for me personally, I would just say that the people who are measuring it most accurately is the Ravens front office, the Ravens coaches. And that's the organization that chose to retain him for, plus 2 years, 3 from the time that he signed the contract. So I do think it's valid that someone measures a separation grade, fine. But it's concept specific, if you ask me. Certain concepts you're not designed to be open. And so I would say that there's times where I wonder if they're measuring those clear out routes, which you can watch clear out routes from high school, college, and the NFL. Guys know they're not getting the football. And so that route is not 100%. That route might be 93%. It might be 88%. There is a gearing down for some of those guys because they're just trying to get the corner and or safety out of the way. So for me to hear that he gets, great separation, I agree. It shows up on film. But the metric stuff, like I'm not the guy to ask about that because I don't refer to it at all. It doesn't mean I don't think it's legit. I think it's part of the whole picture.
I want to be clear about something is they're all working from the same XY data. So it shouldn't be a case of measurement. It's a case of point of the measurement. So I'll take that. And you can do that very differently. You can have different definitions of how you do it. But We got the Bears on the clock here with about 7.5 minutes left to go. I don't see any reason why they would use all of that tonight. Do you, Josh? We're given that they've already basically given Jaden, or not Jaden Daniels, they're giving Caleb his playbook.
No, I don't know why. I don't know why it's taking them so long. Are they running in the cart from Chicago? Like we all know who's the pick been for the past 3-4 months or whatever. So I don't know why he's still sitting there in the green room like his phone didn't ring 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's very strange. Some of these ones, particularly in the first 5 or 7 picks, I don't get how they're doing it. I think the first one there's really a lot of question on is probably pick 3 tonight.
Yep.
With the Patriots potentially trading it. But I am expecting, and we mentioned this earlier, I know we've had a lot of people join. Like we're up to 311 people and rising now in the thing. If I could ask everybody to do a favor, could you hit a like on the bottom of this on YouTube? And if you don't mind, tag or putting a link to this stream up in your own Twitter feed, that would be terrific. So we're asking for people to reach out to other people. We've got Coach on here. We've got, I'm sure, a lot of overlap in the fan bases here, but always great to find new people. I really appreciate you coming on tonight and coaching and co-hosting this show.
Yeah, man, pure fun. I've been looking forward to it since you asked me, to do it. And like I said, I took a nap earlier this afternoon to make sure that I was able to make it through the whole thing. I know this, like, no matter who the Ravens pick, most of the Ravens flock, most of the Ravens fandom is going to be up till like 2:30 or 3 o'clock. And I know that because, like, there's been times before where I've released videos after, I think it was 2 years ago, after the second day, round 2, 3, I put a video up at like 2:30 a.m. and there was like 320 people still watching. I was just blown away. It just tells you how big the Ravens, fan base actually is and how crazy we are.
Yeah, great group. And we've really had a remarkable explosion of content creation in the market. And Josh, you've already written for a number of different places, but you think of all the people who now have podcasts who didn't 10 years ago, obviously, and all the people who write articles, all the different places they put them. It's really a growing fan base from that perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, we live in this digital age where like almost anybody and everybody can have a platform, right? And depending on how you use it and how you can package your content, you can really reach a lot more people coming from various different backgrounds. You have people who have no kind of background in journalism, or you have people coming from finance backgrounds. But as long as you have that underlying thing tying together, which is the love for football or the love for a particular team, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Josh, if you don't know, living the dream out there in Anchorage, Alaska, covering Alaska sports here. He's an Anchorage boy, originally, but living the dream as a sports writer now. It just recently changed professions, right? About a year ago.
Yeah. I'm coming up on like 2 years at this job full time now. So yeah, I love it. I was actually just covering a Native Youth Olympics earlier today, and I had to rush home to try to get the article done so I can hop on here with you guys on time.
All right, appreciate it. Well, this is a good one, Mark. Yeah, that would be pretty funny if Tyler Guyton were to go early. I from all Daniel Jeremiah's saying, tackles are in such demand in this draft. The Ravens are going to be very lucky to get one. They may really have to reach at tackle at 30 to get one, but Tyler Guyton, I'm hearing a lot of demand for him.
Yeah, I think I have a feeling that Guyton might be gone. Mims might be gone, and they might have to I don't like saying the word settle because it's kind of like disparaging to the prospect, but like at the same time, I can see them I wouldn't say bottom of the barrel, but like guys like Sue Matia and Patrick Parr are going to be more in the Ravens' reach range than I feel like a guy like Tyler Guyton might fall to them.
Coach, how do you like Sua Mataia in this draft in terms of his value at 30?
There's definitely tiers. He was not a guy that I originally thought would be the Ravens selection at 30, but when you just look at some of the mock drafts and then some of the projections, you start to see the sheer number of tackles that are going to be taken off the board. You do start to wonder, like, how far down that list are you going to get? I will say this: I think there's 3 to 5 tackles that you could take at 30 that would probably still be there at 38, 40, maybe even 42. Other teams are going to be looking for tackles as well. So I think that's where the Ravens start to get into that decision-making process when they're on the clock of, do we take this guy or do we accept this trade back to 42, 36, or whatever the number is in the team? Because is there really that big of a difference between some of those guys that are rated as the 8th best or 10th best versus the 11th or 12th or 13th? I do think that third tier, second tier group is pretty much synonymous with each other in terms of what I saw on film.
Yeah, it's one thing I really want to point out is I think the Ravens are in a good position that they have a year to wait on their new left tackle. So the guy they get at the end of round 1, I think they can afford to reach a little more than other teams. By the way, Caleb Williams is off the board right now to the Bears. No surprise, so we won't stop to talk about it. Like we said, Ravens-centric coverage here, right? But the Ravens have that year to wait on their left tackle. They will not have it next year. Next year, they're going to need a left tackle right away. So if you want to wait on a developmental tackle, this is your year to draft him. Even though it doesn't maybe help your 2024 team as much. I actually think Sua Mata'ia would be put in at right tackle for a year and then move to the left. Yeah. Agree, Josh?
Yeah. I did a 7-round mock this morning. Well, yesterday, and I had Sua Mata'ia going to Ravens in the 2nd round, but having to trade up for him, I don't know if that'll be realistic tonight. Just given that all the reports of the tackles might fly, they might end up having to take him at 30. But he's the kind of perfect guy like you just described, a guy who could compete at right tackle right away, maybe even start, do the Orlando Brown thing, or maybe he starts midway through the season, or maybe earns the job right away. But you grew him to be your left tackle of the future. He's a guy that had experience doing both things in college. He was right tackle in 2022, and then a left tackle exclusively last year in 2023. So he's a guy that could definitely be groomed as the left tackle of the future and the right tackle of right now.
What do you think, Coach?
I also like the guys that are hybrid guys that at least for a year could play either one of two positions. The Bartons. Even Jordan Morgan, people have talked about being a guard. I personally don't think he's going to be a guard in year 1, but it depends on what team picks him. I do like the guys that could play either of those two positions, particularly in year 1, until something from a Ravens perspective, until something clears up with our tackle situation, meaning Ronnie Stanley's gone. Maybe we plug a guy in at left guard if Voorhees or whoever, isn't the answer. So those are the guys that I'm most interested in seeing where they go. Barton, Morgan, some of the players that can play either guard or tackle, especially early.
I was so intrigued when they visited with Troy Fautanu. I was like, there's no way the guy's getting dropping down that far. Why would you even bother spending a top 30 visit on him? But you know what? They did the same thing with Kyle Hamilton, and I'm thinking would Fautanu be a guy that they may be willing to trade for? He's a guy that can play everywhere but center.
Right.
And so I was just wondering, what if anybody they'd be willing to trade up for? I think Fautanu, if he fell, I don't know how far he'd have to fall in order for them to realistically try to trade up. I know Eric doesn't like parting with those 2nd-round picks, but if a guy like Fautanu starts to fall in the mid-teens, maybe even as early as the early 20s, I think he might pull the trigger on that one.
It's a lot to move up to 24. Approximately, the Ravens would have to trade away their 3rd-round pick at number 93. That is a precious pick in terms of the quality of player you can get at that point in this draft, I think. What do you think about that, Coach?
I agree, and I think particularly at 3 positions, tackle, wide receiver, and corner. And for me, those are the 3 positions that the Ravens would either like to or need to build depth at those positions. And since those, so it makes it tough because we would like to trade up for some of those guys, like you mentioned, Josh, that are, clearly really high level and have versatility across the O-line. That's a very rare thing. I mean, even at the high school and college level, that's a very rare thing for a player to be able to do. But having said that, like Ken said, when you're talking about giving up a pick that's going to be a valuable player at a position of need in terms of depth. And I personally think, we need an outside corner who can do the things that Darby did last year. I think we need that now. I'm not saying that some of the other players that are in the system, JAD, Pepe, aren't good football players. But in my opinion, we need upgrades there at that 3rd player as outside corner if a Marlon Humphrey isn't available. So getting rid of 93 makes it tough to swallow or tough to justify for me in some cases.
Yeah, that's why. Go ahead, Ken.
I completely agree with that. And I think the Ravens really need outside corner depth, and they need youth at cornerback tremendously, given how the group got older in two ways. Everybody who was good is a year older and a year closer to making bigger money. Marlon Humphrey, is a contract that's escalating quickly. Brandon Stevens is going to need a cornerstone type contract to stay around after this next year. And then they have two younger guys who really kind of flunked out this last year with Pepe and JAD. I don't think they're headed for big things in the NFL at this point. So they've got to find the new outside corners who can come in and take meaningful snaps.
Yeah, that's I'm not opposed to them taking a corner in the first round. Like this, in 2017 when they took Marlon Humphrey, corner wasn't really viewed as their biggest need, but they took one even though they still had Brandon Carr, who was an Iron Man, and Jimmy Smith, who was off injury. So you kind of look at them in like a similar fashion now. Like it may not be the biggest need, but it's definitely a need. It's like to me, outside corner is 1B to offensive tackle being 1A. And I think because they regularly rotated tackles. I mean, not tackles, cornerbacks, regardless of health status, dating back to that 2017 season. So I definitely think a corner would be in play. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was the first round pick.
Marlon Humphrey won the team MVP rotating at corner.
Yep.
Yeah, it made me. I had a nightmare scenario today. I was looking at. I don't know why I ended up looking at some Brandon Stevens film. Maybe just because it's fun to do, And I started thinking, we're sitting here as fans just assuming that the Ravens will be able to re-sign him. If he puts together another season in 2024 like he did last year, there'll be a pretty big market for a guy like that, a guy that's just a terrible nuisance for all types of receivers to deal with. So just similar to what you said earlier, Ken, about left tackle, you need to draft him this year in terms of tackle for the obvious need next year. Mm-hmm. But corner, the possibility, I'm not sure if you ever played Spades, a card game, but a possible need next year, and I would say it's a high possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I know the quarterback market hasn't really exploded like the wide receiver market has, but I definitely think a guy like Brandon Stevens can price himself out of the Ravens price range, given where they are with the whole Lamar Jackson contract structure now.
All right, we got the Commanders pick in. I think we know it's an LSU quarterback, but let's wait and see here. Jaden Daniels of LSU is gone number 2. No surprises still. We'll continue on. Wonderful moments. That's not the focus of this show. Good comments, Stacy, about the Guyton's offensive line coach at Oklahoma. One thing about Guyton that I really love, and he is kind of my guy at the end of the first round, who I don't think is going to fall that far anymore. Guyton showed he's very unpolished as a pass blocker in a lot of ways, but he did a lot of the same things that Morgan Moses did about being very decisive on the back end of counter plays. If they're running what I'm talking about, they're running a 2-man pull to the left side where it's either guard tackle or center tackle. He very, very effective at finding a block, getting there, and putting that guy on his rear end a lot of the time. But anyway, it's not something that is an easy thing for tackles to do, particularly if they have any level of indecisiveness in their play.
Yeah, those tackles, I mean, first of all, the paradigm or the size human being that you need to deal with the pass rushers, it's a very small number of players who can do that. And then to be able to pull, like you said, all the way across the formation. And it's not like high school where we'll just tighten up the right tackle split because we know he's pulling. We'll give him less distance to cover. No, you can't get away with that in the NFL. Someone's going to notice it. Those guys being such large human beings and being able to pull all the way across the formation. And from a Ravens standpoint, we often did that with the center and the tackle. Mm-hmm. It's Linderbaum out there. So, you can't be too slow as the tackle because then you're creating a big seam or space between the center pulling, Linderbaum, and the right tackle. I thought Moses did an amazing job of those two things the last 2 years. He was a load. And now imagining Derrick Henry following someone as the right tackle, on that train coming through there is, it's a lot of fun to think about.
It's a good question here from JR. I want to try and get to is, could the Ravens afford to wait until round 2 for a left tackle, given that they have a year? I'm afraid the developmental guys are all basically going to get taken. And the last developmental guy that I think is, I guess there are 2, Rosengarten, who's kind of small and doesn't have a great anchor. That is something Lamar's been able to deal with before with Ronnie Stanley. The other guy is Patrick Paul of Houston, who probably goes at some point in the second round, I would guess. It wouldn't absolutely shock me if he goes to the bottom of the first.
Yeah, those guys to me, like Paul, Rosengarten, I mean, I've even seen those guys get late first round buzz. Those guys are going to be gone in the first 10 picks of the second round. So there's no way the Ravens are going to be able to get that the tackle that they want, or even their seventh, fifth, sixth choice at 62. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, there's another question about who could be flexible enough to play another position. Most of the guys who are these monolithically sized tackles, the Ravens could try them in another position, and they might be as good as either Cleveland or Voorhees potentially for a year. They could certainly play at right tackle instead of Fa'alele because the bar is not too high there, unfortunately, in terms of a level of play. So I don't think there's a question about any player not being able to play another position. The problem I have is valuing flexibility over true left tackle qualities. True left tackle qualities is the ace of trumps. You want that above all else. You will give up everything, including maybe a year of play, to get that. I'm personally not willing to sacrifice on that. And Coach, I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
I think we already have what your setup there. I think we already have that in Patrick McCarry. I think we already, and I understand his contract expires, I think, after this year.
Yeah.
We already have someone who, like we were talking about earlier, the kid from Washington, he can play every position. Well, he can play center. Ravens fans don't want him to, but McCarry can play anywhere, across the line. And we saw the reality is 2022, when Ronnie Stanley came back in week 5, I believe it was week 5 against the Bengals at home, there was a huge difference in how we were able to pass pro against the Cincinnati Bengals. I vividly remember, and I'm not saying that Ronnie Stanley returned in 2022 to the level that he played at before that, because he clearly has not. But there's a clear difference in our ability to leave him one-on-one versus McCarry or the other guys we had over there at left tackle in 2021 and early 2022. There's just certain things we can't get done because we're getting our ass kicked over there by Trey Hendrickson or whoever it is rushing off that left side.
That included, I think a bad game and a good game from McCarry against Hendrickson this last year, and same thing against Highsmith. So I'm not particularly okay with having McCarry be the only backup, but that is McCarry's job right now. He's a backup left tackle. He's not really a backup at any other position, which is good. That's what the Ravens need him for, to be an above replacement level guy. We are having right now what I think is the first little bit of drama in this draft. And New England has actually made their pick instead of trading it. And they didn't announce it yet, did they? Josh, did I miss anything?
No, I think I'm on a little bit of a delay. I see the pick is in, but I think you guys get a little bit before me in Alaska. Things on a little bit of a lag.
So what are we expecting? A Drake May, JJ McCarthy? What are we expecting?
I think it's going to be Drake May. I got a feeling it's going to be Drake May.
I'm interested to see who gets Marvin Harrison Jr. It's just very difficult to watch that film and not think, that 2-3 years down the road, as a GM in front office, you're not going to be second guessed for not taking that guy. I don't know what other people aren't seeing when I watch it. I just look at a guy that I'm like, he's immediately a 90 catch, 10 touchdown guy player.
It's analysis by paralysis, because he opted to sit out and Rome Odunze spent extra time in Indianapolis running those extra drills, and everybody else participated in the pre-draft circus. It's given them more cannon fodder to try to poke holes where there are none in that guy's game. I mean,
right.
It makes no sense to me.
Drake May is officially the third pick going to the Patriots. So the Patriots long suspected that they might trade out of that they might like McCarthy more. They did not do it, and they have their new quarterback here. I'm sure Mac Jones is really happy wherever he is right now.
Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So Sean Asher has a great one here. What's our projected comp picks for 2025? Do we trade one of our picks for next year to move up this year? That is possible, Sean. Yeah. So they have a 4 and 3 6s as projected currently by OTC, which is pretty good. So it is a 4 and 3 6s, right? Not a 4, a 5, and 2 6s. I think it's 4 and 3 6s. Yeah. So they have the chance to use the floater method of trading a pick, which means you're usually always trading the last pick of the round you do. Now, other teams know you're trading them a floater, and they'll give you less for it. But it is an option so that they don't basically have a bad season and end up trading a high pick in a round. And that's the problem with trading picks in the first couple of rounds, or even 3, where the Ravens won't have a compensatory pick, is that they run the risk of having to give away exactly that pick and having their only pick of the round, and having it be a high pick in the round if the Ravens somehow Lamar Jackson were to be hurt or something else were to go wrong with the team, that they lost a bunch of football games this next year.
Yeah, that's why I was so mad that neither Anthony Weaver or Denard Denard Wilson were hired as head coaches. Because had they been hired as head coaches, then the Ravens would get a compensatory third-round pick next year. That would have been great. But Weaver didn't get selected for the Atlanta job or the DC job, so it is what it is.
He's a sure thing. You see that guy, boy, he is a leader of men. That's absolutely true. And he does it at the podium where he's a great communicator, but he also does it just training those defensive linemen. And he basically looks like he can still play for starters.
Oh, yeah.
But he gets up in there against the other defensive linemen, and he asks them to do the rip drill against him. Normally they wear the heavy arm pads for that. He'll do it just with his bare arms.
He doesn't need it. That guy's still ripped himself. He's good.
I do think that EDC gave us a little bit of a hint, or maybe laid some bait out there for other teams when he said that they'd like a certain number of picks in a certain range. I think he even used a hand motion, like with his hands, and spread them out like a little bit distance apart. Said we want a bunch of picks in a certain range. And I think I do suspect or wonder if that was him basically courting trade options. Hey, call us because we're looking for picks in, I believe, the 55 to 85 range, somewhere in that area. I think that's where they're looking to maximize their selections. We currently have 2, if you want to count 93, just outside that range. I think they're looking for more, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think if the Ravens can get like 2 2s or like 2 3s, like it's like their own and an additional pick, where they can really kind of target like an outside corner. And I feel like a lot of those outside corners, the aircraft carrier guys that really kind of fit the Ravens, are really going to start going. I feel like between second round and I want to say 75 or so. It's like guys like TJ Tampa and Cam Hart and Matt Melton, those guys who really fit the Ravens, I feel like aren't going to be around at 93.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of guys fit that bill. There's 5 first-round corners. What do you think about the medicals on Wiggins dropping him to round 2? He is my number 1 corner, and I'm if it weren't for the medical, I'd be very certain on him. Where do you guys stand on him?
I think the Ravens take him at 30 if he falls.
Agreed.
Be excited.
No question. Yeah, no question.
I was just telling somebody earlier today that, I feel like Eric DeCosta is much more of a traits-based kind of GM more so than Ozzie was. Ozzie was always, production and, pedigree, whereas Eric has been willing to, I guess, gamble a little bit more on guys who may have some injury red flags or some like weren't highly productive in college, which Nate Wiggins wasn't. He was pretty productive in college, but as far as injury red flags. Yeah,
and his coverage, like he's a guy who pre-snap, there's no giveaway. I think pre-snap, he's often baiting, it's not just about baiting quarterbacks. It's about baiting the receiver with your leverage side, making him think you're playing a certain coverage. Wiggins, to me, looks like a guy who's a couple of steps ahead of the receivers in terms of, I'm making it look like this coverage and then it's something else. And he's got the physical ability and speed to play all of the coverages that we do really well. I think he's an incredibly smart player and very aware in zone coverage. I haven't seen it get talked about a lot. I thought he was a super aware zone guy.
Yeah. I want to address Brad's question in just a moment here, but we've got the Cardinals pick in, so let's hear it when it comes up. And Marvin Harrison Jr., not a big surprise, is off the board at number 4. I think this is the spot pretty much everybody expected him to go. If the Cardinals had traded the pick, they certainly, almost certainly would not have gotten Harrison, as it turned out, so it didn't make a lot of sense from that perspective. And there he goes.
Good pick. I saw a mock today where they ended up doubling up and taking Thomas from LSU, and I was like, whoa, how could you improve one position more in one draft than picking up both of those guys? It'd be pretty unbelievable. They have other needs though.
Yeah, but they have so many picks in the top 100, and I feel like they could, if they really want to do that, they really could. If they have another first round pick, and they could probably give away like one of their second twos and one of their second threes, and entice the team.
Yeah, I don't know how they pass on Latu if he's there with their second first round pick. I just don't know. With the way their defense has been the last couple of years, I would have a tough time justifying that.
Absolutely.
Medical flags on Latu at all a concern for you, Coach?
No. I watched a game and a half, and I was like, why am I wasting time watching this? Like, the dude is a stud. The only guy that I saw him have trouble with in any way, shape, or form was, I think, the second half against Arizona. They moved him over to the right side, and Jordan Morgan did a great job against him. And the ironic thing was Morgan had what I thought was two poor reps in the first half against some other edge rusher for UCLA who wasn't nearly as talented as Latu, and it was almost like Morgan turned the volume up. But for me, I stopped watching a game and a half of Latu. I was like, he's the best outside linebacker that I've seen. Better than Hutchinson, better than Walker, better than Kayvon Thibodeau in terms of the whole package of moves that he has, and they flow together quickly. This is going to be a ridiculous comparison for some of you. He reminds me of a high-level mixed martial arts fighter who can punch, he can kick, and he can elbow, and he can grapple. Latu can do everything.
I'm going to say this about Latu. I think I like him too, and he's certainly in my top 3. But I do have a question: is he already so polished that that's what's helping him as much against college level tackles, where he's going to face pro tackles who have more brute strength, more ability to hand fight, are going to be better at mitigating the value of the hand placement that is at the highest level I've ever seen. And that's, one thing about a hand placement, you don't even notice that Latu is putting his hands on somebody else because the placement is so good. All you notice is the tackle flailing, trying to get his hands on Latu because he's so good at extending his body with that great, hand movement. It's extraordinarily polished, and it's the kind of thing I can't really deduct from him other than to say there's not a lot of ceiling left for Latu above where he is right now. At least that would be my feeling about it.
It's possible.
I totally understand the argument, Ken. Like, I've heard a lot of people say, like, is he already tapped out? Is he already tapped out? When your ceiling is already that high, I mean, I'm not saying there's another level he can reach because, you can always do more with pro coaching, getting him with a guy like Chuck Smith, like a guru already teaching a technician who knows what they could accomplish. But I feel like for a guy whose ceiling is already that high, would you rather roll the dice like, hey, maybe a guy like Chuck Robinson might pan out, or a guy like Latu who you already know is going to, be a steady starter contributor for you? I'd much rather, go with the safer pick than roll the dice on a guy like a Chuck Robinson.
I think he's also very good at, like, as you just mentioned, Ken, like establishing certain moves and then using certain moves off of the ones that have already succeeded, and not just a counter to a move I've run already, but a move that worked previously. So it's been established in the tackle's brain. He can threaten me with move number 1. I think as crazy as watching him, it looks like a guy who has 3 primary moves. That's what it looked like to me.
Let's try and get to Brad McCowan's question here because I think this is a good one. So, given how hard it is to get left tackle, I don't understand not wanting to trade a third to make sure you can get up and get that guy. And I'd probably get him to 23 or 24 if they're willing to trade a third-round pick this year. So, I basically agree with that, Brad, that I think it probably is worth giving up that 3 as much of it could be a very good player if you could get, say, Amarius Mims at 23. Guyton is a little bit more of a project, or actually he's probably about the same amount of a project as Mims. He just does not have quite the same upside as Mims, in my opinion. If they could get a player like Latham, who will probably go earlier, it'd be another matter entirely. I guess they're going to have to reach in some way to get their left tackle in this draft by one of 2 ways. Either they're going to have to trade up to get him, so give up a third-round pick, or they're going to have to overdraft a player like Suamataia. They might even not get Suamataia, may be gone by the time he's gone. And the third choice is they may have to take a consolation prize. And I honestly believe Jordan Morgan is a consolation prize at left tackle. I think he really needs to play guard, given a arm length under 33 inches. That's not all. It's not just arm length. He has a really bad anchor. And that's not what I want to see in a left tackle. I want to see him have, enough foot speed, obviously, to deal with the lateral movement needs of the position, I want to see him have an anchor as well to be able to stop the bull rush. And he really lacks that second component to such a degree that I'm concerned about it. All right, let's keep going here.
I'm relying on you guys. I'm not watching it that way. I don't react to a stream if I'm 10 seconds ahead of you. So I'm relying on you guys for the picks.
Sure. Still 2:09 to go on the Chargers here, so we're waiting on them. This is the first pick that's taken an exceptional amount of time to get through, but we are sitting here at 8:44 and only 5 picks in.
Yeah, and it is Joe Ortiz, former Ravens assistant, front office guy. So he's might drain the clock like same way Ozzie would.
Agreed.
Backup center, Stacy. Who do you want to see as the backup center the Ravens could get? Because there's a ton of centers, really good ones in this draft. If you want to build your offensive line around a center, this is your year with players like Graham Barton and JPJ and Frazier of West Virginia. Lots of guys who going to end up center.
Yeah. As far as a guy who could back up Tyler Linderbaum, a guy like Tanner Bortolini from Wisconsin in the later rounds, I wouldn't mind that at all. He's an athletic guy who can get out there on screens and pull, and is athletic in space. So I wouldn't mind a guy like that at all.
All right. We're going to bring in Brandon Croxton onto the stage. Brandon, how you doing? Can you hear me, Brandon? You're on mute, I believe. We're going to stick Brandon back in the green room while he gets his oh, wait a minute. Maybe he's got it now. You good to hear me? You hear? Okay, Brandon, I'm getting some feedback from you. I need to put you in the green room again for a sec.
Where are the Chargers at with their with how much time they got left?
Pick is in. They haven't gone to the stand yet. So who are we expecting here at number 5 for the Chargers? So they didn't trade the pick. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be either offensive lineman or Malik Neighbors, one of the two.
Difficult to justify passing on someone like Neighbors when you watch the film of him. I mean, he's so dangerous. Just so dangerous, with every snap.
Yeah, especially after all the bloodletting they had at the position this offseason. But this is Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman we're talking about here. So I think a tackle is definitely in play, whether it's a right tackle or probably right tackle is probably the only thing they really go for because they got Rashawn Slater playing left tackle.
Yeah.
All right, how are we doing, Brandon?
Hey everybody, I'm here. I can hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. Brandon Croxton. Okay. Former defensive lineman at Howard, had the privilege to play with Marcus Douglas. Yep. Who was one hell of a football player when he played with him, and a great NFL player for a long time, which was kind of cool. But Brandon, appreciate all you do for the show and the number of times you're on this year. We're waiting on the Chargers' 5th pick. No big surprises so far. The first little bit of drama that New England stayed at number 3 and took Drake May. Any thoughts so far?
Yeah, it's pretty much kind of chalk so far. New England really needed a quarterback and to come away with a quarterback. So staying at 3, unless you got just an absolute haul of a trade, I think you have to stay and take your quarterback. So, it's a good pick for them. A young quarterback, lots of potential. I guess we'll see how he develops.
All right, we have the pick in right now, and it's a big one. Joe Alt, the first offensive tackle, is off at number 5. Now, I will say this is not a good pick at all for the Baltimore Ravens. This really hurts because this is a team that didn't have to draft a tackle. They could have drafted a wide receiver. This is another team that basically is eating into or adding to the demand for total tackles in this draft. Joe Alt's a great player. This is a very, very bad pick, I'm afraid, for the Baltimore Ravens to have a tackle go to the Chargers.
For plan A, I agree. But there will be, I'm sure that they have plan B, which is 11. This sounds ridiculous, but 11 tackles are off the board when we're here at 30. Then what's our plan A or even plan B? Could be something that we address it in another way. But in terms of getting a high level guy, I agree with you.
Yeah, this kind of like pretty much kills any hope that we have of Troy Fautanu falling far enough for them to trade up for. I just think that guy might go anywhere between the next 5 to 7 picks.
Would it be fair also to say that with that reslotting of everyone all the way down, that kind of everybody moves down one in the tackle pecking order, and so you end up not being able to get Guyton because of this, or not being able, maybe even to get Suamataia because of this?
Yeah, I could definitely see a team like maybe like the Chiefs or somebody else from even behind the Ravens trading up ahead of the Ravens at 30 and snatching up a guy like Suamataia and pretty much forcing them to either take a guy like Patrick Paul or, I don't know, waiting for something else to fall. But that's about it, man. It's not exciting and not very exciting as far as the prospect of them landing a quality tackle in the first round.
I don't think my own consternation or anxiety about it will be done until the Lions have turned in their pick, because I suspect that, whatever is there on the board remaining the Lions will get significant offers to trade back. So unfortunately for us guys as Ravens fans, I don't think that feeling is going away anytime soon in the next 2.5 hours.
Maybe the Ravens could be in on that, but even seeing the Lions are 24, right? Is that correct? So
no, Lions are 29, right before the Ravens. That's what I mean, right before, because of all the trade back offers that the Lions are going to get to move up in front of us. Whatever tackle quote is there, other teams, I'm suspecting will try to get in front of us to scoop them up before weekend.
Yeah, Washington will be the prime suspect in my eyes.
I mean, would we now reset our sights? If you want a left tackle, do you have to move up to something like 23 to get one of the right-priced guys? I mean, you might need to draft Guyton at 23, who would have been a guy that, intersection of need and value at 30, but it's just not going to happen that way with Alt going off at number 5. We'll see.
I think if a team like Minnesota is able to stick and pick and land their quarterback JJ McCarthy at 11 instead of having trade both their twos, I think they might be willing to part with their second first round pick, for not too crazy of a haul.
Mark's got a great point in the chat. This could all be fixed if the Titans pick wide receiver.
Yeah,
and if other teams, if all 6 quarterbacks are taken, before the Ravens pick or before the Lions pick at 29 and the Bills in front of that, it could absolutely, help us out.
Yeah, the Titans are one who was projected to take Alt originally. So if they went a wide receiver, you're right. It would put us back in a 0 situation instead of this -1 we're in right now.
And some of these other players that have certain talents, but the production isn't there if they're taken too soon. A couple of guys that, I'll mention, Chop Robinson is one of them for me. I understand that there's certain traits there and certain things that he does extremely well, but there's also a lot on film that wasn't done at an extremely high level compared to guys like Latu and Dallas Turner. So if those guys get selected before 30, it kind of helps slot someone else back down to us, either a tackle or a corner like Wiggins.
Yeah, I could never see a guy like Chop Robinson getting picked and reached for higher than he realistically should go.
All right, here comes the Giants selection of the stage. Expecting JJ McCarthy here? What are we expecting?
I think it's going to be Malik Neighbors.
Okay.
Or that's what I would. If I'm a Giants fan, that's what I would want. Neighbors or best player I can get.
Well, Neighbors it is. So let's see. That leaves a team that didn't draft a quarterback that might have. That's kind of not so good. Also for total selections prior to 30.
Yeah, but maybe they might be willing to trade into the bottom of the first for 30. To get for the Ravens.
I feel like go ahead. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was saying I'm guessing that probably that 6th quarterback comes from somebody that trades back into the first round from early in the second round or mid seconds rather than one of all 6 going in the first 25 or so picks.
So this is a possibility for the Ravens. Are the Ravens in a year like this willing to move back off 30, pick up some a decent pick, and let's say 38, 45, somewhere in that range of selections, and then another 2025 number 2 pick? Would they be willing to do that? Or can they afford to do that in a year like this where they already have very limited draft capital.
Yeah, it's really, I think, a unique opportunity for the Ravens to address positions. I think the alignment you're talking about, picking Guyton at 30 being the alignment of value and what's the other part of the saying that you put there?
It's need and value.
Need and value. I think our positional needs, tackle, receiver, corner, line up with this draft perfectly. So I feel like maximizing the number of picks in this draft in that range that DaCosta mentioned is. I really think it's kind of like an all roads lead to Rome situation. The Ravens, in my opinion, are going to be able to adapt no matter how many quarterbacks, tackles, and anomalous players are taken before 30. I feel like they're the one team that can balance on one foot and still throw a knockout blow in this draft. They are able to adapt, I think, to whatever's out there. I'm really not concerned.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought, kind of no matter what happens in the first round, the Ravens are well equipped. Not just well equipped, but this class is well equipped to help them address a lot of their needs when it comes to both starters and depth pieces. So I'm still optimistic.
Gabriel's got a neat point in the chat. If there's a run on tackle, then Wiggins falls. And I think that you could replace Wiggins there with any number of 2 or 3 or 4 names that are going to be there.
Sure. Yeah, the Wiggins happens to be my number one guy, but I Kool-Aid McKinstry is very enticing as well in terms of a guy who could be playing corner for a while. I'm a little bit more concerned about Quinyon Mitchell than most people. Where do you guys fit on him?
He's going to be long gone before the Ravens are on the clock, but usually those guys from the non-Power 5 conferences, some of them hit, some of them don't. I think he has all the tools to be successful. I just don't know how he's going to handle the jumping competition. I mean, I know people want to praise the way he did at the Senior Bowl, and I'm not discounting that at all. But going against senior All-Stars isn't the same thing as going against NFL All-Stars. So,
I really like, from a McKinstry standpoint, when you see him pre-snap coordinating 2 players, the awareness to do that at any level of football, look, high school, I don't care, is really fun to watch. A defensive player point out to his teammates what's getting ready to happen based on formation, situation, alignment, maybe wide receiver split. McKinstry, you watch Alabama games and he's doing that 3-4 times a game. And you can see the physical movement because you can see him moving his hands, his shoulders, or his face mask. What we don't know is how many times he's done that verbally with the mouthpiece out, and we don't see any physical movement. I think you're talking about an elite level player in terms of awareness.
You know why that really is important is in our division with all of the bunch formations that are run. We know that the Steelers are always trying to rub somebody free, but the Ravens play a lot of matchup zone, a lot of 2 different rules on for 1 different rule on each side of the field, I should say, and that's a very big deal for everybody to be on the same page. And being a communicator is something I'm sure the Ravens would really covet in terms of McKinstry.
And you touched on it because there's certain split field coverages that don't match up together, meaning you can't play this one on the right and another one on the left. And certain guys know that. And McKinstry looks like a player to me who would understand, hey, we can't play this on the left side because they're playing that on the right side. And being able to, in that 3.5 seconds, adjust his guys on the side so we don't get in the, quote, wrong look. Basically involves doing 2 different things with the safeties, one on the left and one on the right, in a manner that isn't supportive of each other.
All right. We've got the Titans pick coming back after this commercial. And I'll just say this. There's 3 names I really don't want to hear. Actually, there might be 4. I don't want to hear any name that begins with an F coming from the Titans. Fashano, or Fawaga. And I don't want to hear Latham either. I don't think Latham in people's mind has jumped up ahead of all those guys. Fashanu, I think, to be the second best left tackle in this draft. If we hear one of those names, that means we didn't get back to that 0 level where the offensive tackles are about where they should be at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I did hear an interesting thought from Robert Mays, I think earlier today or one of his other podcasts, when he was saying that don't rule out receiver for the Titans. here, just because they hired the Callahan from the offensive line coach from the Browns, and he's a renowned guy for making chicken salad out of chicken, you know what, when it comes to offensive line talent. And we saw that last year. I mean, they had a rotating cast of guys that, you know, they beat the Ravens with what, 2 backup tackles and 2 backup guards in the same game Deshaun Watson got hurt. So I mean, if you have an offensive line coach who's, I mean, you don't always want to bank on that, but if you have a guy that's developed that can do more with less, you don't have to put as high of a priority on those other position higher in the draft, and you can attack a guy like Ramadunze.
I have not heard that 2025 is supposed to be a very deep draft. Has anybody else heard that for sure yet?
Yeah, there's so many guys who've gone back to school. So 160, one number said 82 who've gone back to school because NIL is paying them so much money. They didn't have to, excuse me, they didn't have to decide to come out this year and possibly be a second round draft pick versus going back to school, getting paid their, you know, whatever the number is, and then going into next year's draft. I mean, I've heard that. I'm not saying that that's the reality, but I've heard that from a couple of people. Yes.
Philippe, appreciate you bringing this up. Coach has a camera issue, and he has to talk as the voice of Oz here on this pod. But yes, you can't see him as a panelist. He's actually co-hosting the show with me, and I really appreciate you doing this, Derek. And sorry we couldn't get you on screen here.
Also allows me to eat. I don't know how you guys do it, so thank you.
We use the mute button. That's what we do. So.
I ate beforehand, so I'm good.
Yeah, that'd be, you know, honestly, I think if they could get 4 starters, that'd be good. A lot of, you know, kind of a break-even level is getting 3 starters. You don't get them all in year 1. You know, get a year 1 starter, year 2 starter, and a year 3 starter pretty frequently might be a reasonable thing. If you get 4 starting caliber players, you're really talking about a good draft. And if you get 5 or 6 or more, in fact, like they did in 2018, is, you know, one of the greatest drafts in franchise history.
Yeah. And spot starters too. I mean, this is, you know, I keep going back to the Darby situation. I think, I don't know about you guys, but I was always so blown away every time they put him in. He was just so solid. He was always in great leverage relationship. And so being able to find a corner who can be that spot starter if and when Marlon Humphrey's not able to go. So does that corner count as a starter this year? I mean, I don't know, but we need him.
I mean, he'll count as a starter in the group eventually. We just had some very bad news here. The Titans have reached, I think, probably for a tackle here and gone out and getting J.C. Latham of Alabama at number 7. That is unbelievably higher than I'd ever seen him mock, but he moved ahead of the 3 Fs to get there. That's very surprising. And number 4 tackle prospect on my board, behind Fasciano and Fatano. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm not surprised. I know some people do like Latham over those guys. I've even seen some things where people had them as their tackle too. I don't necessarily agree with that, and not because I'm knocking him for small hands, but I just didn't think he was better than Fatano.
What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I would have gone with Fasciano over him, but I mean, you know, sometimes it only takes one person to, you know, see things different and to go ahead and jump kind of the consensus here. I just like Fasciano. I think he's got, you know, better feet, but I mean, Latham's got that size and he's got that physical presence. And, you know, if they're trying to get back to possibly a more physical running attack, I think that might be more the guy that you want.
Just I'll blink this up. I won't have this on for very often, but this is my top 10 at every position. I made a few adjustments since the shows, particularly some of the older shows, like at Edge. I moved Latu down to number 3 for a medical and whatnot. But this is the first non-chalk pick for me. This Latham pick is the only one that wasn't at the top of the board at the time of the pick. So a little bit of a surprise to me.
I think some of it can be scheme-based, number 1. Number 2, one thing I know I often neglect to do my research on is like who's coaching in the NFL that knows his O-line coach from college. So you could be talking about someone who has an understanding of the scheme and plays that Alabama ran and can watch it film and go, hey, he's not supposed to be able to do this. So it always is interesting to me, and who's coaching the guy in college versus the team that picks him. How do they know him? Like the Iowa relationship that the Ravens, quite obviously have with various positions, not just O-line.
Chris, I do not have that. One of the things I don't like to do is give away all the stuff that's on the podcast. I have my podcasts have my rankings 1 through 10. I only changed a couple of them coming into tonight. That mostly they were the ones I did a while ago, like I mentioned at Edge. But it's and I also mentioned shifted my top 2 IDL, made it Murphy Newton instead of Newton Murphy. But no, I didn't ever publish that in an article form this year. It's only out there in podcast form. But thanks for asking.
I wonder for the Titans, are they gonna play Skoronski at left tackle? Who's gonna be the left tackle now? I mean, I'm assuming Latham's gonna play on the right side because he played in college. I'm just wondering who's gonna be their left tackle.
I think everyone is projecting Latham to the left side. I think it's just a case of Alabama. He's a I don't know. I expect him to play on the left side, and both.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I think he's more than capable of doing it. I was just wondering if that's their plan for him. I think it's funny how he picked up the commissioner anyways, even though I don't know if you guys saw the tweet about him having back surgery recently, and he said he wasn't going to be doing the draft day hug thing, but Latham picked him up anyways. You can see the grimace on his face.
Now, one thing I think we're really hoping is that Atlanta picks a quarterback at this point, and it might not happen, but it would be really good if it did.
I wouldn't be surprised if they went defensive line here and got Murphy.
Yeah, I would think they're probably going defense, either pass rusher or defensive line. I'd be surprised if they take a quarterback. How long did they sign Cousins for? 3 years?
3 years, but I think it's I think it's really only a 2-year deal and just no guaranteed money in the 3rd year.
Yeah, they have an out.
Right.
I guess, Brad, I'm a little concerned that even in the high 20s now, even like 21, 22, might not be good enough. You might have everybody gone by then. And I hate to be a doom and gloom guy, but we just have not had good news so far in terms of the tackles being off the board.
I think it puts the onus on the Ravens front office to make sure that they've done their research on guys. I mean, I know Ravens fans aren't going to like hearing this team mentioned, but you have to look at the job that the Chiefs did in drafting defense in that one draft. I think it was 2 years ago. The guys that were rookies against the Eagles in the Super Bowl and then were second-year players this year. That was an amazing job by them to draft 4 or 5 players who could contribute in year one. Karlaftis, the inside linebacker from, I think, Wisconsin, and a couple of other DBs. It puts the onus on the Ravens. If they run out of tackles to draft that are ready from day one, it puts the onus on the front office to have done their due diligence on which players can come in and help at other positions or which offensive linemen they can draft in round 2 or round 3. That's what they get paid for.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, Coach. I just got to say that you have to also have some luck in the board falling your way and not getting absolutely wiped out by nuclear weapons as we get through the top 29. But yeah, of course, they always have to pick well, but they also want things to fall their way. And that's why we're kind of rooting this tonight. Did get some good news. Michael Penix goes to Atlanta with number 8. A little bit of a surprise, guys. What do you think?
Wow, that's a big surprise. I mean, Kirk Cousins, a 4-year deal, and you draft a quarterback in the top 10. I mean,
agreed.
That's wild right there.
I thought go ahead. I thought the late smoke on him being a potential, first round top 10 pick was just like, draft week smoke. But the Falcons weren't playing around, man. They got their quarterback of the future, who's already kind of old.
Wow.
So much talent on the board for them that could play from week 1, in 2024, and barring injury to Cousins, Penix, probably won't play a snap. It's it's difficult to justify especially because would you say that Cousins' deal was 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah,
They
4 years.
just flashed it on the TV. Yeah, 4 years. I think it's 120 or something. Yeah, but yeah, 4 year deal. So I mean, you're losing so much value out of your pick to Penix because he's probably not going to play it probably at least the first two with Cousins out there, unless you think he's going to beat Cousins, and then you're just wasting $40 million a year in salary to Cousins. So
Okay, I'm looking at the contract right here. They basically the Falcons will save $32.5 million in the third year. So it's 2 years where they basically are tied to Kirk Cousins. In the last 2 years, they're not. So
Right.
a $32.5 million savings in 2026 means Penix could be playing as early as then. And if you're already on the lame duck year of your contract and your Cousins, and you have an opportunity to play either Cousins or Penix, you're then in a sunk cost mode where you play the better player. You know
Right.
you're getting rid of Cousins at the end of that year. You just whoever is the better player earns the job in 2025.
I felt like they were in on an outside linebacker. I felt like they needed it. That's one of the defenses the last 2 years that even at the NFL level I've looked at and just seen a complete lack of physicality from a block destruction standpoint at linebacker level and even at the D-line level. Good players on that in that scheme the last 2 years. I thought played, for lack of a better word, soft. I thought they needed a reboot in terms of talent on defense. That's surprising.
Yeah. I thought they were going to go either Turner or Murphy here. I thought Murphy was going to be a surprise pick. I did not see Penix coming off the board in the top 10. I mean, if they wanted to take him, honestly, they could have traded back and got him in the teens if they really wanted him in the first round. I just don't see the value in taking him at 8. I mean, who are you beating out here?
Then the trickle down effect is the other teams looking for quarterback in this range. Now they're behind the 8 ball as well. So where are we at, Ken, in your count? +1, -1. What would you say it is now with Penix being taken here?
It's the left tackles. We're still -1. I had the Titans drafting a left tackle, and they got the number 2 left tackle, which is not good. So I had them taking Alt. So anyway, we're still at a -1 for that. A good question here from JR. I'll answer this real quickly. Didn't Stanley struggle with his anchor? Yes, he did. I think that was part ankle related. Is that the more trouble you have planting on that ankle, the more trouble you're going to have anchoring. I thought that improved in the last 4 games of the year. A pretty solid improvement. PFF has him graded way higher than I do in terms of the number of pressures he gave up. He allowed the cone to be impeded quite a bit this year. But honestly, I think that they have a reasonably good chance to get a year out of Stanley in 2025, but he'll be priced out one way or another for 2025 and beyond. So they have to find their left tackle, in my opinion, in this draft. Roma Dunze off the board at pick number 9 to the Bears. This is a hell of a draft for the Bears so far, huh?
Oh man, it's almost manifest. Those two guys flew in together, Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze. And something just told me that those two guys are going to be a match made in heaven because Keenan Allen's only under contract for 1 more year. They got DJ Moore, so I mean, Chicago's going to be. I'm not saying they're going to be Super Bowl contenders next year, but they're going to be. I mean, they're already highly competitive last year with Tyler Bagent and then Justin Fields occasionally when he wasn't banged up. They're going to be dangerous for sure.
Yeah,
and they're deep. They're deep.
The best. Oh, sorry,
go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. You got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'd say that this is probably the most explosive offense that the Bears have ever had, at least as far as I've been alive. I mean, this has been a hard-hitting defensive team for my whole life, going back to the 85 Bears on through. They've always been a defense physical. I mean, even when they had Cutler, they were still, they still didn't have the explosive weapons that they have now. But I mean, boy, that trio of receivers with the Dunze and Keenan Allen and the kid from Carolina also, and coming in with Caleb Williams, that's a heck of a offensive skill positions right there.
Their defense is young and fast and very physical. I got the chance to watch them twice against the Lions because I do Lions coverage on my channel as well. And I'll tell you, that's a talented defense. Those guys play fast and they're very decisive. They don't back down at all. I think that's an underrated team for 2024.
just joined here quickly by our producer, Josh. Do you want to be off screen or on screen for tonight? He wants to be off screen.
No, sorry. Yeah, you can just leave me off screen.
All right.
Just making sure everything's running smooth.
Okay, now, number 10, the Vikings have traded for. Now, I'll just say this. This was a great trade idea was given for the Ravens to move up to number 10 because the Jets were very closely linked to Brock Bowers. And the idea would be you trade Isaiah Likely plus number 30 to get number 10. It would put Isaiah Likely's value at approximately the number 27 overall pick in the first round. Seems maybe a little high, but Isaiah Likely is certainly a rising star in the league right now with two years of team control remaining and potentially being very worthy of a franchise tag for that fifth year. If you believe in him and you're always a little bit skeptical of first round tight ends, could have been a great trade, and the Ravens could have had Fashanu at this point at left tackle if they'd been willing to make that sort of a sacrifice. David Bushelman is the guy who submitted that trade idea to me. I actually thought it was very good and very well thought out in terms of the relative value exchanged.
So what will end up being the trade specifics here?
Did not hear.
Oh, they spent like a bunch, I think it's like 129 and 157 or something like that.
And how much did Minnesota move up?
Just one spot. They were at 11, so now they have 10 and 23. So they could definitely take their quarterback here and then still get an impact player later in the first round. So good for Quethley, man.
I'll ask the obvious question here. You're saying they moved up one pick?
Yep, moved up one pick, gave up two.
Why?
I think they were afraid somebody might trade up with the Jets to take McCarthy. Yeah,
got it.
It does make sense. So the Ravens were threatened when they moved up one pick to get a Lodi Nada. They were threatened that the Eagles were also doing the same thing. And you could tell Ozzie was a little bit better at that game in terms of figuring out that the Browns were full of crap on the thing to only give up a 6th-round pick to move up one spot.
Or they had a call that, in to say, hey, call us if you get an offer better than this. So.
Okay. Dying to see who this 10th pick is, because if the Jets are at 11 now, David Bushel and your trade still might be out there in terms of the Ravens moving up to 11 for 30 and Likely. So if this could be a big night for the New York Jets, trading a couple times here
absolutely
to get some additional picks.
Wow, that's I mean, what, the 4th and the 5th? That's not that bad if you really believe this guy's your franchise quarterback. So I'm assuming he's going to be a quarterback.
All that's there is JJ and Bo Nix, right?
Yep.
That
is it. Unless you want Spencer Rattler in the first round. You want him in the first round?
I've really been impressed with what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has been doing at Minnesota these past few years. Just kind of understanding value, and I haven't seen this somebody do as many trades within their own division as much as he has. But
right.
getting guys like Hawkinson and trading back, and I've really been impressed with his patience and understanding of value.
They've got 23 as well, right? Or is it 24?
I think it's 23. So like
23.
They didn't even have to give up two ones for their quarterbacks. They're going to get
right. So they retained. That's why I was sorry to interrupt you, Josh. That's why I was wondering, what they gave up, because I thought it was 23 or 24. So I saw a mock earlier today that had them taking an OLB. I don't know what you guys thought of that. Didn't they sign Didn't they sign Van Ginkel and Grenard from the Texans?
Yeah, but Van Ginkel's more of a Sam guy who kind of do a little bit of everything for you. But yeah, I definitely think they're gonna take a guy like the Chop. Like it's funny because like my editor back home, he's a Vikings fan, and he saw that mock what they're projected to take Chop Robinson, and I was like, I wouldn't take Robinson over a guy like Latu or Verse, because they had that mock had Verse and Latu going in the late 20s, and I was like, anybody else would be crazy to do that, but I could see the Vikings doing it because they made a similar bet when they took Daniil Hunter years ago. He was a guy who didn't have a whole lot of production in college, but had all those traits and panned out well for them that time. I wouldn't do it. Zach
brings up a good point in the chat. If you're the Vikings, do you try to recover some of that capital since you used to get 23? So possibly a trade up candidate for the Ravens there at 23.
Yeah, that'd be smart. Yeah. The Ravens have two fours. Yeah.
I am way behind on the questions here. They're coming in at a fast rate here. I'm going to try and catch up. Hey, Josh, do you mind catching me up on any of these questions and just bringing some up into chat so we can respond to them quickly?
Gabriel's got a great point.
Video, I know. So
Gabriel's got a great point there. Not panicking if there's an absurd run at tackle, some other position will present amazing value. Totally agree. But to Ken's overall point for tonight, we do have to address left tackle specifically now for at least 2025. And the reality is, Ronnie Stanley has been injured each of the last 2 seasons, so we could possibly need that tackle to play sooner than the overall plan presents. But I do agree with Gabriel's question, or the premise there, that it'll present some value at another position, potentially top 15, top 20 talent value.
Yeah, I definitely think the Ravens are going to get a top 20 player if they stick and pick at 30. One of their top 20 players if they stick and pick at 30, just given the way that things are kind of falling right now.
Well, they wouldn't have had Penix in their top 20. I don't know who else really is not. I guess you factor out all the quarterbacks.
Sure.
Okay, I think we addressed some of these ones about
difficult to fathom, wanting to trade likely with the only concern would be, Andrews coming off an injury. He's completely healthy. I don't think that's something that I'd really want to do to move up 7 picks. It seems like a hefty price tag. But 23 now does look like a real option for a trade up candidate in the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. They're going to want to recoup picks, so that would make a lot of sense. They may want 2 picks, but if they got a third, I think they'd have to consider that a win.
Who's after 23? Bills,
Dallas at 24, so that they want to tackle.
And then the Arizona, who presumably does not, but we don't know exactly what the rest of their needs are. The Bills.
Arizona's at 27. Green Bay at 25. Tampa Bay at 26, probably a defender. Green Bay I've seen mocked frequently as a tackle.
Yeah.
Then Buffalo at 28, maybe a wide receiver after with Diggs gone and whatnot. Detroit at 29, and then the Ravens. And of course, got to be consistently concerned that somebody's going to trade into 27, 28, 29 and move up. Because if I were any of those teams and I'm looking defense, I'm not at all concerned about getting a good defensive player at that point.
Yeah.
All right, J.J. McCarthy is off the board. Unbelievably, 5 quarterbacks off the board. So Bo Nix. I'm going to bet right now Bo Nix goes number 12 to the Broncos. Based on what's going here. You've heard that one as well, right?
Yeah, I definitely think. I mean, like it's either that or nothing, because the Broncos don't have a second round pick. And how are you going to entice a team in the late first to try to trade you for your third round pick unless it's going to be attached with the 2025 1 and a 2?
Yeah, that is obviously a lot of change. Yeah, interesting. It said that Penix may not play until he's 26 years old. He's getting to be Brandon Whedon age.
Right.
Honestly, that's what I was saying too. I mean, this guy's going to be damn near 30 by the time he finally sees the field. If Kirk, keep responds from his injury and plays back to the level that he was playing at before he got hurt.
Interesting situation they're going to have there in Denver. As a coach and someone that was, responsible for younger people, seeing the way that someone like Russell Wilson appeared to be treated is difficult for me to defend in any way. So hopefully Bo Nix has got some thick skin, which he probably does at this point.
Greg, I think they're talking about you, Josh. Shrimp Trawler, good to see you over here, buddy. it's a great point you make. Is couldn't they trade Mark Andrews? The problem is that it creates so much dead money that it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So Andrews can be cut as early as next year if they. First of all, if you had another injury-plagued year, I think that actually is a realistic possibility that you just go with Likely. But they're probably going to be making their decision on who they go with after 24 and extend at that point. I don't really believe the Ravens are going to be able to extend both of them with contracts also coming up for Hamilton and Linderbaum as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think it's an either-or situation with them, and that's a tough call because Andrews is, obviously the better player, but he's also older and are his best days behind him and are likely his best days in front of him. So
yeah, I think it might not be obvious at the end of this year. I mean, seriously, they had 140 passer rating throwing to all the tight ends this last year, 12 touchdowns, no interceptions. Likely was a big part of that, and didn't get an opportunity really until Andrews stepped off the field to get much in the way of receptions.
Yeah, it was really frustrating.
Outstanding. Yeah. Sorry. I was just saying, likely was outstanding when Andrews went down. So he looks like a top 15 tight end himself.
Yeah. I was going to echo similar sentiments. It's a shame that they can't find a way to use two of their best players when they're both healthy on the field at the same time, especially when you've been banged up at receiver for the past couple of years. And it's just, man, like he's such a dynamic weapon. It's just I can't understand why you can't find a way to use both of those guys while you still have them, because you won't be able to keep them both for long.
Likely's numbers, for like a 5 or 6 game stretch last year, if you prorated them out, they were pretty ridiculous, I believe. I think it was almost it almost lined up perfectly with the last 6-7 games of the year, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. When Andrews got hurt, that's when he became a stud.
The difficulty is scheme-wise for 12 personnel for us because, so much of Monken's attack with the tight ends is to the boundary. It just is. It's a boundary side attack with the tight ends in the pass game. It's just an obvious thing when you watch any segment of 30 or 40 pass plays in a row. That's just where the tight end is. That's just where he is. And that's in, multiple levels of football now. So the 12 personnel thing with those two at the same time is going to be interesting to see how Monken handles it, where he lines them up. Does he put both of them to the boundary, which I think is a strong possibility?
Okay, we just had another piece of very bad news. Olu Fashanu from Penn State off the board at number 11 to the Jets. Now, we would have really hoped Brock Bowers would have been selected there. Get a tight end off the board that obviously doesn't impact the Ravens' plans in any way, or even that they trade the pick to the Ravens, which could have worked out perfectly to have Fashanu be the guy for the Ravens, but not going to happen. And I think we're at -2 now. If you're keeping score, Coach.
Yeah, as much as I hate this for the go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
I was gonna say, as much as I hate this for the Ravens, it's really smart by Joe Douglas and the Jets. I mean, you got 2 injury-prone, tackles on either side of your line, and you got to figure that Fashanu's going to start at least at some point for Aaron Rodgers there sometime this season.
The Jets won all the tackles. I was hoping that Fashanu went top 10, not from a Ravens standpoint, but because the two teammates thing, going top 10 in the NFL, 2 high school teammates, that is.
All right. Hey guys, my typing there, does it sound into the microphone? I just want to make sure if I need to be on mute, I will. Okay, great.
Nope.
The Vikings try and trade 23 and recover some draft capital. What do you guys think?
I'd love it for the Ravens if the Ravens would want us trading up for a tackle.
I wonder if a tackle is going to be there at 23.
That too. I think 23 would be a little too rich for a guy like Patrick Paul or Sua Mataia. So I don't know. We'll guess we'll have to wait and see. Fingers crossed.
So just a little thought exercise. I mean, Fashanu and Latham are all pretty much kind of considered top 10 to 12 picks anyway. So no matter, who actually picked them isn't necessarily the worst thing. I think we should probably begin to worry when a team reaches for a tackle. So if we see, Mims go in the next couple of picks, or even Guyton go in like the first 20, I think that's when we would worry before, just the top guys going early.
If Guyton goes in the top 20, that's the point at which it is over. We're projecting ahead now to see if we're at that over point. It's two teams that didn't have to go left tackle, went left tackle, or went offensive tackle, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm. But a team that's in need of a tackle, coming over the next couple of picks, they might have lost their tackle, but they'll pick, another position. They might take, a wide receiver or something, and then we're in the same place we were before. I think it's
I agree with you, but we're at -2 right now, so we've got a limited number of total selections. In fact, only 18 12 through 29 to make up that -2. So other teams have to who needed tackle during that time, he did not take a tackle and leave one for the Ravens. That's a big looking hill to me right now.
Yeah, I don't know, Ken. I think I'm looking at the draft order right now. I think New Orleans, with Ryan Ramczyk being hurt, I think they could take a tackle. I've seen Seattle, Fautanu mark to Seattle a lot. I mean, Cincinnati could take a tackle. I wouldn't put it past Pittsburgh either. I don't know, and Miami too. So I don't know.
But also, what you also want to think about, all these teams that end up taking tackles, there might be a surprise release of a solid veteran tackle that the Ravens could go after in the next couple of years. Kind of similar what we did with Zeitler. Yeah, a couple of years ago. He was a release, I think, right after the draft, and the Ravens scooped him up. Yeah.
Kind of unbelievable. He gets released, and 5 days later, I think, signs a 3-year deal with us. So it's going to be interesting. I think the talent drop is just very unique for me, at least in my experience. This is being my 4th year of trying to focus on the draft. That and I think I said this starting with my draft coverage a couple of months ago. There's going to be top 12, 15 talent taken in the late 20s or early 30s, which is because everybody's been pushed down the board in terms of defensive players. I'm pretty amazed at some of the guys that, quote, should be picked 10, 12, 14 that are going to be taken mid to late 20s because so many quarterbacks and tackles are being selected.
Okay, so we had a second comment about Mark Andrews. To trade Mark Andrews this year, the Ravens would actually pick up $1 million in cap savings, which is effectively cap neutral because the guy you have to replace him with on the rule of 51 is going to make almost exactly that same amount if it's a vet minimum guy. So effectively, it's a cap neutral deal in 2024. So it's probably not 100% impossible that the Ravens could trade Andrews, keep Likely, and just decide they're moving forward that way. If I were looking at this, I'd say Likely has far more trade value than Andrews. If I'm right at this point in time, and somebody asks me who do I want, Andrews or Likely, I'm all over Likely and his future and 2 cheap years left, and then the years after that, rather than paying Andrews for the 2 years he has on contract, and then having to re-sign him after that. So. We could talk about trading Andrews, but I don't think that's going to be the thing that brings value back. Broncos pick is in here, so I guess we're hoping for a quarterback right now, guys. Again,
right?
Yeah.
Bo Nix, be beauty.
If Bo Nix went here, wouldn't that be like 6 quarterbacks in the top 12?
Yep.
My goodness.
I wonder about that. That system seems so different.
There we go.
He flourished in at Oregon. It seems so different than what he's going to encounter in Denver.
0 defensive players taken. Number 12 is Bo Nix of Oregon. Spencer Rattler, come on down to that front row, and the price is right here. He's the only guy I have in the entire middle class of QBs in this draft. But Bo Nix, an interesting pick, and I think probably a necessary reach for the Broncos. I definitely did not expect everybody to be gone by 12. Could say that.
Yeah, no, me either. I definitely think the Raiders came in wanting the quarterback, struck out, and I think they might take it. I think we might see our first defender come off the board coming up next with the Raiders, and then they might take Rattler early in the second, and that'll be that. I highly doubt that Spencer Rattler is going to sneak his way into the bottom of the first.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's why you got to give the Raiders credit for signing Gardner Minshew, a guy who can actually start and win some football games if you've got good talent around him. They had a contingency plan in place, weeks ago, and in this case they needed it.
And that's what last year the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got away with, having Baker Mayfield and being a right-priced veteran. They were able to come in and get to play when there really were no other options.
Yeah, they got they signed him for like $3 million or something. It was like something really low. They got Baker for last year. I believe it was under $10 million. He had a bunch of incentives, but they initially signed him. His contract value was like well under $10 million. It wasn't even double figures.
I'm looking right now. So that's in the history part of this, I think, right? So his first year from the Buccaneers, he earned $4 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And they just re-signed, didn't he?
Yeah, $100 million for 3 years. Yeah.
Ken, are you willing or able to pull up your top 10 position again?
Sure.
How many of these guys at the positions that have not been selected yet, if you want to do this, and if you don't want to, that's no problem.
Sure.
Do we project being taken from now to 24? Because I believe from 24 to 28 is pretty easy to predict in terms of teams that don't need a quarterback, and only one or two of them would be looking to take a tackle, if that makes sense.
Let's color code them right now. I don't
right,
think
there you go.
I think 0 of the IOL. I still think Brock Bowers will go by then to somebody. None of the running backs. Thomas is the only one, I believe, in the wide receiver group that will still go. I believe Murphy will go. I believe Newton will not go. I think we'll see Turner go. Verse is actually he's maybe a question mark, so I'm going to make him a different color here. Maybe he goes, maybe he doesn't. Latu, same thing. And Chop Robinson, I don't believe he's going to go by then. Not with the incredible mound of players. No inside linebackers, no safeties, and then the real question is at cornerback, where you have 5 guys who you could put in that group. I don't know who gets taken, but I think that several of those guys will be taken by. We're talking 24 now, and how many players do I have listed? We have 12. That's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then 7 more yellows. So I think you can take your 4 out of those 7 yellows, and you probably have the guys drafted by 24.
Yep. So we're looking at once you get to, just doing sheer math numbers here, once you get to 24. Oops, sorry, I lost screen for a second. Once you get to 24, if I did my math right, we're at 14 now.
Yeah, Brock Bowers is just the first offensive player off the board, by the way, right now. So we're gonna change the color on him.
He went to the Raiders at 13?
The Raiders, yes.
Oh, good for him.
Okay.
It's kind of eliminates the chance of a wild card Raiders pick that we've enjoyed year after year in recent years.
I'm a little floored by that. I thought they were gonna go defense there. And I thought they were gonna be the landing spot for Quinion Mitchell, but I mean, didn't they just take that Meyer kid out of Notre Dame last year in the second round? So I guess they're going to be heavy 12 personnel team.
Yeah, really. I kind of had my dark horse for them would have been Brian Thomas Jr. because they love speed and receivers that can get deep.
Right.
Yeah, that's an Al Davis special.
Yep.
Now, Brian Thomas, would you have a problem if he dropped all the way to 30 and the Ravens took him? Because I'd be thrilled with that.
I'd love it.
Oh boy, that's a dream too.
I mean, it's a great pick. Then they've got their contingent. They'd have to have their contingency plan on how to address offensive line efficiently over the course of the next 3 days. I don't think you could pass that up, can you?
Well, yeah, I mean, if Guyton was on the board and it was Thomas, I might pass it up for that, even though I think it'd be a little bit of a reach pick for Guyton in a relative sense. But if it were Thomas, he's one of the guys. He's my darkest of dark horses to drop to 30, kind of the way that Hamilton was to drop to 14, or Derwin James was to drop to 16 when the Ravens didn't take him. For anybody who needs to be reminded of that.
It's going to be close. Yeah. It's going to be close, Ken, for your 4 that you have blocked off there.
I'm sorry. Which team?
It's going to be close to see if one of those is there. Chances are 2 of them are not, right?
I would think chances are all 4 will not be there, but we'll see. Since we're in that -2 hole right now, you got a lot of teams you got to get by who need offensive tackles. You got the Chiefs potentially moving up to get a tackle and be willing to pay for it. It's not a good spot the Ravens are in right now.
Their draft strategy recently seems anti-ethical to me to getting rid of draft. I mean, just because they're the first team to win the Super Bowl, correct me if I'm wrong, with a quarterback at such a plus salary, they seem to be more Ravens-esque in terms of their drafting. We're going to take as many swings as possible in the draft and not limit our total number of possibilities. I really like what they do drafting wise, even though I don't like their team at all.
Okay, Brandon, you removed yourself there, right? I didn't remove you by accident. Okay,
no,
thanks.
Still here. Yep.
When there's a technical malfunction, the rule of thumb around here is that I made a stupid mistake. So go with that. That's a good point. That's interesting. Yeah, he's traded a lot more than that. He traded Kenny Young. By the way, how about that Kenny Young ice cream cone story on the carpet? Was that a great one or what?
That was awesome.
Okay, I might have missed a pick. Did we have 13 was Bowers, right?
Yeah.
It should be the Saints, right?
Saints are on the board.
Saints, yeah, I saw something. It says they're mulling trade offers right now, so we might get a trade here.
I can see that, someone trying to move up to get a tackle because they're seeing what Ken's talking about, tackles going off the board.
Matthew, I'm all with you on an extension for Oweh. I think it's all about the price at this point, but 3 years for about $50 million in addition to the option, which would keep him here for a total of 4 years for about $65 million-ish, I think would be a home run for the Ravens if they could get it. It's going to seem very cheap by the beginning of that 3-year deal, let alone the end. I know there are widely differing views about Oweh in terms of his production, but one thing he certifiably gets is a ton of pressure, whether or not he finishes the job a lot of times.
Yeah. The Ravens make that clear almost every time they talk about Oweh is how much they value the pressures and how sacks on everything, not just with him, but with their team in general. There are years, I mean, yeah, they led the league in sacks this past season, but there are years where their pass rush was still very potent, even though they finished middle of the pack in sacks, but they were consistently tops in the league in pressure. So they definitely value that over sacks.
When he was completely healthy last year, I thought he looked amazing. It looked like he was playing at a different speed from most of the other guys on the field.
Yeah, from like the Detroit game through like pretty much the rest of the season, I think.
Yeah, week 1 and then like week 7 to 11 or 12, I thought he looked spectacular. There was a period, I thought, the last 3 or 4 games of the season where he did not look the same in terms of explosiveness and just sheer pursuit to get to the football. But week 1 against the Texans last year, I thought Oweh looked amazing.
He put Laremy Tunsil in the blender in that game. Yeah, he was great.
John, thanks again for the great idea. Wish you'd come on the show. By the way, just make a quick plug here for Film Study Shorts. If you want to do a program this offseason, hit me up with your idea. I love having people on. John had an incredibly well thought out trade idea of how the Ravens could get up to number 10 that I thought was really worth discussing. I try and make it as easy as possible for the guest. I'm not looking to steamroll you or or run you over verbally. I want you to get your idea out there and have an open mic view of the show in general. So I hope you'll join me when you have the chance and as good an idea as John had, or even just something you're passionate about.
Has there been any word on the numbers for the Bateman extension? I haven't heard anything.
No, we don't know of anything yet. Dion, a trade up to 23 for Latu, I would not necessarily see as being in the cards. I'm not saying it'd be a terrible choice. I think if they trade up and they give up a third-round pick, they're probably going to want to get an offensive tackle. And they have some other options at edge that are probably consolation prizes, but still represent pretty good value at 30. That'd be my view. Darius Robinson of Missouri is a very interesting inside-outside player, really a 5-tech / 7-tech guy who would I think potentially be like a newer and bigger kind of a Suggs player that we might really appreciate in Baltimore.
Yeah, he's here. He's at the draft right now. He was one of the invitees that was there. So I think the league consensus is that Darius Robinson is going in the first round, if not the early second. So I hate for when those guys got to go to the green room and then they got to sit there till day 2. Most of them only have one custom suit that they wear for the biggest night of their lives, and then they got to go back like Geno Smith did in 2013 with the sweater vest.
What about? Do you really feel sorry for Aaron Rodgers after you've learned everything you do about him personally and the?
that guy is the weird chicken, as my grandmother would say. That guy's a weird
chicken, huh? All right, we're still waiting for that first defensive player to come off the board. Is this the place it happens? Do the Saints take maybe Murphy or Turner here?
David makes a great point. No outside linebacker pass rushers being taken yet. Pretty unbelievable.
0 defenders.
Right? I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And we're going to see a lot of corners taken here, right? So,
yeah, I think Seattle might take an edge. Might take an edge instead of a tackle here. Even if Fautano was on the board, I think Seattle might prioritize edge, given that they still have Lucas and Cross.
Yeah, I certainly don't think they're taking corner like that mock draft. That mock draft we talked about earlier today had them taking corner. I was like, where did that come from?
Yeah, no. I mean, no. That's they still got Woolen and Witherspoon. I mean, I guess Witherspoon is more of a slot, but still.
And Trey Brown, who's a very underrated corner.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, more moaning, guys. We have Taliesa Puaga off the board, the Oregon State tackle / guard, a right tackle exclusively in college, a guy I think there's probably no reason why he can't stay there. He looks like an absolute road grading right tackle. Does not look like a left tackle to me. So in some sense, that's not too bad. But in another sense, it's another tackle off the board. And interesting. So we've heard some things early in the day that Fautano had an injury flag that came up kind of late that is now deemed to be more serious. And he seems to be dropping a little bit, having not being picked by 14 now in a tackle-heavy draft.
Hey, I trust the Ravens doctors to get him right. You know, if you want to fall to Baltimore. Defensive players still got their arms in the air, wondering what the hell is happening at this point. Yeah, I think Brian Thomas is going to go to Indianapolis Colts at 15. I know they just paid Pittman and they drafted Downs last year. He's more of a slot, and Pierce hasn't really panned out yet. I think a guy like Brian Thomas will be right in their wheelhouse, especially with a young quarterback like Richardson. You want to surround him with as many dynamic weapons as possible. So,
yeah, they're going to be a problem next year, if you ask me. They were a problem this year with Minshew playing. Obviously, for us, I think with Richardson and whoever they take, I agree with you. I think they're going receiver. They're going to be an issue.
Also, I think this could be where the first cornerback comes off too. They're pretty weak at corner too. So.
Oh yeah. Mitchell could definitely be in play too. You know, now that you mentioned that, Mitchell might be the guy because they really like the Colts really like athletic, not just athletic corners, but like they spend a lot on when it comes to like trait-based players. So that might be the guy that they roll with there.
The Ravens got a guy this offseason at cornerback who also happened to play at Toledo, Kadar Holman. Okay, he's on their 90-man right now. Might make the roster as a lower down guy. Very similar, got the normal kind of build for an outside corner that you expect. He was drafted in 2019, and the guy has 439 speed compared to 433 for Mitchell, and they both go to Toledo. Very similar players in a lot of characteristics. I'm just going to say context really.
Sounds like Ken got dropped from his own show.
Yeah.
I think he was talking about the physical characteristics being similar between a guy that the Ravens have on our roster who's from Toledo and Quinyon Mitchell. It's going to be interesting, man, if they take Mitchell. I follow two really serious Colts guys on Twitter in terms of film study, and they were having that conversation in a
sorry about that.
They were having that conversation about the receiver versus corner, value that they need. I really think they're going offense, but eventually somebody's got to grab a defensive player.
Yeah.
Just to finish off the point about Kadar Holman, virtually identical in a lot of ways to Quinyon Mitchell. And Kadar Holman is now playing for his 10th stint with his 8th team in year 5 with the Ravens this year. So context really matters at all positions.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, Tyler. Yes, everybody's having a good laugh about this.
Wow, that's 14 picks and no defenders yet. That's crazy. There's got to be some kind of record.
I would guess.
Yeah, I would think
if
so.
not, it's close. Yeah.
It's a good point, Shrimp Trawler. So they have a good chance to be disappointed also. I'm not sure that really helps us enough. Usually just playing whack-a-mole with your divisional opponents is not a good enough way to improve your chance to win the Super Bowl. Oh, okay. Thank you. The old record was only 7 picks before the first defensive player.
Wow.
Already doubled it.
So, yeah, Zach, great point here, by the way. And I think that ESPN draft predictor model has a way that it's looking at the remaining players that does not include the elasticity of demand for that that occurs. So, for example, if Mims is expected to go off the board 21st, or if Guyton is expected to go off 24th, let's say, for every position he drops, there is an increased incentive for other teams to move up and get that player at a high demand position. So I don't think there's even close to a 50% chance that Guyton's around at 30 right now.
Yeah. What's the record on, you've got a lot of listeners, obviously, which is a wonderful thing, but what's the record on number of tackles taken in the first round? We're going to have to be approaching that, right?
Oh, yeah, that was it? The Jake Long year, right? There was like 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think 7 was the record.
So they're going to exceed that.
I'll look it up.
Any idea the 2 high school players taken from the same school in the same draft in the top 10, 12 picks? I know it's never been done in the top 10, but we had 1 and 11. Did Fashano go 11 or 12?
He went 12. Oh no, he went 11 because the Jets and the Vikings swapped picks.
So they're both, yeah. So him and Caleb Williams are both from Gonzaga High School in DC. So you're talking about 2 kids from the same high school going 1 and 11 in the same draft. I know Alex Smith and Reggie Bush went top 10, but that was 2 years in a row, 2005, 2006. I think O.J. Simpson and his best friend Al Cowlings got drafted 1 year apart from the same high school.
Oh, really? That's his Bronco driver, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Same high school, same junior college, same school, USC, and then drafted 1 year apart. So, but it's never been done. 2 high school teammates top 10. It almost was this year. Pretty crazy draft already. And we're only at what, 14, 15?
Mild surprise here for me. The Colts have made their pick. It's Latu coming off the board as the first edge at number 15. I think that's definitely a good thing for the Ravens in terms of pursuit of a tackle. Now there were people that thought he could last to that point. I had to reverse Latu and Verse on my list. How are you guys feeling about Verse now being left as a potential guy they draft at 30?
I wouldn't mind that at all. I'd like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 7 was the record for tackles in the first round in 2008.
Wow. I feel like this is where Latu should have been drafted based on his talent. Is that how you guys feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping that the medical red flag would drop him into the late 20s to the 30s, but he deserves to be top 15 for sure.
Yeah, as long as he's healthy, that dude's a 8 to 10 sack a year guy. Even if he may not be that absolute game record, he's going to be a consistently good player every year.
Yeah, it's ready to go in year 1 too. He's extremely polished, and he should be good right away.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Josh. Sorry, no, go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
I was saying that for a while, the Colts have really been rolling the dice on a lot of traits-based rushers. We got like Kwity Paye and I forgot the other guy they had out of Wake Forest, and now they're really I have no problem with them taking a high floor guy. Eventually, you kind of get tired of betting on athletes and coming up snake eyes, on guys who are just more traits-based than production-based. But I mean, it's a good move for them.
What do you guys think the Seahawks are doing here?
Dallas Turner.
I'm a huge fan of Boye Mafe, man. I wouldn't want, if I was a Seahawks fan, I wouldn't want anything that gets him or Uchenna Nwosu off the field, because I think Nwosu is an underrated guy too, but tough to pass up on Dallas Turner, so good point. Yeah.
I just know that they like to be like 3 to 4 deep on the edge. My dad's a huge Seahawks fan. And yes, if it's not, I'd be shocked if it wasn't Dallas Turner, and if not him, then I mean I would hate this, but Fatanu would definitely be a guy who they could definitely use at guard or at tackle if they don't bump Lucas inside, or if they want to use him at guard.
That's what I was wondering about tackle, because I know I didn't from the feedback I got on Seahawks videos they weren't happy with Charles Cross.
They just took him in the first round 2 years ago.
Yes, I believe. Yeah,
they're not giving up on him. I mean, he had a good rookie season. Sometimes you have the sophomore bump. Sometimes you have the sophomore slump. So I don't think they'd be willing to move on from that guy after just 2 years. One good, one bad, one not so good. But I definitely think that if they didn't trust Abe Lucas, who struggled with injuries last year, that might be they definitely would be able to replace him with Fatanu.
Want to remind people of our rules here. We're not tipping picks. So if you happen to know the picks ahead of time, and there are some ways you can get them from certain reporters on Twitter and whatnot, and sometimes one network's ahead of the other because of the commercials and whatnot, please don't tip the pick, and we'll experience this all together and be upset and whiny and pouty about it, or very happy at the same time. So increased chance that McDonald, after all these picks are off the board, is going to be in there begging perhaps for a defensive player to be taken?
I don't know about begging. I mean, he seems like a guy that does a good job making chicken salad or chicken shit. So I don't know if you can say trust John Snyder to do whatever, but I definitely think he'll have some input. I guess the only surprise I might see here be a guy like Cooper DeJean, who some people will say could be his Kyle Hamilton in Seattle, but I don't know about all that. Kyle Hamilton was a freaking pterodactyl. That's not Cooper DeJean.
Yeah. Cooper DeJean does a lot of different things well on a football field, which is why I don't think he fits the Ravens as well as some of the other players. Don't get me wrong. I think he's good enough that the Ravens could draft him at 30 if he's the last corner left. But, they won't get the versatility value of DeJean like other teams will.
because they really like Mollett, and the rotation between him and Hamilton in the slot last year. Yeah, you don't really need that. So you'd almost be taking him just to exclusively your backup third corner, but at the same time, you don't really. That kind of defeats the purpose of taking Cooper DeZean. You want to take him because he can do so many things. Well, you already have 2 guys, and 3 if you think Pepe Williams still might hold out hope of him panning out. It's not really a big use for that.
It'd be a lot on his plate as a rookie, but DeJean could probably move back to play that split field role on the back end.
Yeah, the Geno replacement.
And then also be a rotational outside corner. So I guess they could manufacture a way to get him on the field enough. But
yeah, totally forgot about that. Yeah, he could definitely be that third safety that allows Kyle to play that hybrid nickel role more often.
Yeah, anything that moves Hamilton up on first and second down is what we want, because he not only is great against the run on outside lanes, but fitting inside as well. But the screen just destroys the screen game to his side. It's gone. Killer. Yeah. It's just it's out of the game plan. So really whittles down the offense's play calls that are available to them and makes playing defense simpler for everybody else.
Unbelievable.
The Chargers game was magnificent.
Yeah, the Bengals is an unbelievable. Value in particular to a weak-armed quarterback like Burrow, who has more trouble throwing the ball deep and has to make judgments about that. If you're going to face too deep, but Hamilton's up in the box to take away that strong side of the field, that's an unbelievable additional weapon to have.
Yeah,
and you play them twice.
I think defensive coordinators breathe a sigh of relief every time he's back. In cover 2 or something, but when he's on the line, that's when that's where they lose sleep.
Ken, you got your board up? Can you move your board over on the screen again?
I can. Let me do that. Give me a second.
And where are the Seahawks at with their pick? How much time?
This pick is on my screen.
It's in.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not watching. I'm just relying on you guys.
Okay, so I don't think we've had anybody else taken, right? I've got all the picks in here, 6, 10, 16 we've had done. This is, wait a minute. 6, 10, 15 done, right? This is number 16.
They may, maybe they went corner here because there's just so much good talent on the board, but.
How are they on the interior defensive line? Is Murphy a reasonable choice for them? Because he's actually slipped a little bit from.
They got Williams, I think. Was it Williams?
Yeah,
right.
They got Leonard Williams.
Nice.
Their whole defense is fast and talented too. I mean, they got rid of some guys, obviously, but we know Mike McDonald's going to be able to. I think Josh said make chicken salad out of chicken shit. He's going to be able to make a C+ player play like a B. He's going to be able to make a B- player play like a B+. That's just reality. We saw that dynamic the last 2 years. It wouldn't surprise me if they don't go defense here. I'm thinking they go tackle, but you said the pick's in.
Pick is in. They're at commercial right now, so we're waiting on it. So you're a financial planner, and I just want to toss this out here for a second, Brandon. But when you see that commercial about don't make old you hate young you, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Don't make the future you hate you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
it'd be a good one for your profession for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, here we go. We're back, and we should have the pick in just a second here. Now we got the Jaguars on the pick with 17, and they've only got 6 minutes left, so they did waste a lot of time at commercial here. But I am kind of expecting this to go slower, and it really hasn't slowed down for trades since number 10, right? Or was it number 11 was also traded?
They swapped 10 for 11.
That was the only trade, Minnesota and the Jets.
So this is probably a little bit surprising.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, having someone that could play in Marlon's place in if he was injured in a given week and or play safety by default, that's kind of ridiculous. So it sounds like even unrealistic because they're such different positions.
The Ravens need to really get on their horse and sign some safeties right now. They've only got two guys on the team, unless you really believe Ardarius Washington's a safety, and I don't, that can play that position. And they probably want to enter camp with 6. So they've got Worley out there. They've got here we go with the Seahawks selection. Let's go to that first.
No, I agree about safety. I do. I think we're in on safety at some point, 130 or before.
You also got
all right.
Clark
Byron Murphy is off the board. So the top interior defensive lineman is gone.
Good for McDonald. He got his Matabike.
Yep.
Johnny Newton, Jerzon Newton, whatever you want to call him, was originally thought to be a lot higher in this draft. And, Murphy is now old news now that he's going to the Seahawks here. So we'll have to look forward for the Ravens. How would you feel about Newton at number 30?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by it. I wouldn't necessarily be entirely thrilled. I mean, you still got. I mean, Michael Pierce is getting up there in age. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't be over the moon, but wouldn't hate it.
Like, yeah, what does that mean for Travis Jones, and how could you get both Newton and Matabike on? Can one of them play nose while the other one's at the 3 tech, or could one of them bounce outside? That's yeah.
I mean, they did so much with Matabike last year, moving him, playing him at 3 and at 5 and on the edge. That I guess you could find ways to get all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time. I just don't know if they'd want to put less outside linebackers on the field in some of the obvious pass rush situations.
The guy who would probably be out of a job is Brent Urban because he's on a handshake deal for another year. In a lot of ways, Newton is a fairly easy plug for him, but they're going to have to replace Broderick Washington next year in all likelihood. So it's not an easy situation. They're getting older on the inside. They really haven't had a lot of young defensive linemen come to the team, with the exception of Jones. I saw something in the paper today in the Sun, and I don't want to beat on the Sun writers because they do their job very well. But this I completely did not agree with, and I think it's grade inflation, which is the problem. They're grading every draft pick of the DaCosta era, or maybe of the last 3 drafts. That's what it was. And they put Fa'alele at a B-, which to me is absurdly high for where he's drafted. D+. Let's be fair about this. Let's not overgrade the guy, but hasn't been an F, but he certainly hasn't been a higher than that.
A B, right.
Yeah. And then because their ranges had been narrowed so much, they gave only a B to Travis Jones. And I'm like, Travis Jones is on an amazing trajectory right now.
Yeah, he can play. He can play. Yeah. I think Newton or someone like that this early kind of a little bit too much overlap for me, even though there is obviously not a lot of talent there. I like the guy. I hate to sound like Coach Harbaugh, but I really like the D-line group we have. And with Van Noy, being re-signed, I don't want to say we're set there because we never know who is still on the board at 30, but I really like the group we've got there on the inside.
All right. We just had another pick. The Minnesota Vikings took Dallas Turner of Alabama. He's off the board. Number 1 edge as I had it. Yeah. And here we are back. We're back to a pretty chalky looking board here. The only 2 guys who haven't been picked from the top of the position are Fatanu, who there is a late injury flag on, and Verse, who got jumped by Latu. But at this point, still a pretty chalky looking board. And I'm trying to think.
Did you see what the Jaguars got in return for 17, Ken?
No, did not. What did they get?
They got 23, 5th round this year, the 3rd round next year, and the 4th round next year.
5th and 3rd and the 4th and 25. Let me look at that in terms of JJ value here.
Yeah, so they got a 3 and a 4 next year, and a 5th and their 1st this year.
Okay, so 23 versus 17 is only about 190 points. And that does seem like a lot. So a fifth this year, and it's Minnesota's fifth, right? So that is
Yeah.
number 167 is what they traded, maybe? Okay, so that's worth about 25 points.
Then a 3 and a 4 next year.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like solid value. It looks like those the picks in the third and fourth round next year are deeply discounted. And when I say that, maybe they're discounted by about 30-35%. So
it's a pretty good haul though for good value. It's a pretty good haul though for Minnesota if you think about it. You get Dallas Turner, the top edge on most people's boards, and you got your quarterback. So you got, like I said, you give a bit of a haul to get Turner. But if I was a Vikings fan, I'd be happy that they traded up to get Turner rather than settle for Robinson.
Yeah,
I like it from a Jags perspective. Really, they must have been comfortable with taking, whoever they really want at 23 or projecting forward. Makes me wonder. I mean, if they had a tackle they really liked, and they would have sat and picked, right?
Yeah, I thought they were going to take Thomas. I thought they're going to be
right.
The ideal Thomas team.
Okay, somebody's pretending to tip picks, I bet here.
Yeah, I saw.
This is like I like don't want to put it up there because it's kind of like showing a streaker running across the outfield. You don't want to encourage more of that, but it's funny.
Good point, Jay. Good point.
Do you think Cincinnati's a place for Brian Thomas Jr. to come off with T. Higgins in probably his last year? And, they got rid of Boyd. Boyd's still free agent.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
He's the last guy I have a sure first round grade on is Thomas at wide receiver. The rest of the guys, honestly, I think should be able to be had in the top of the second round, despite the incredible run on offensive talent.
You mean at receiver?
At wide receiver,
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not overall. Okay.
Yeah.
I was about to
Although
say,
we're not too far away from that overall, with the exception of those 3 tackles. I guess we got JPJ still left as a first round pick, as I would see it, maybe Barton as well.
How much time is left on the clock for the Bengals?
We got there's no time there. It just says round 1, pick 18. The pick is only 3 minutes remaining, so they're running out the shot clock here.
You would think it was certainly possible that we see 3 tackles taken in the next 6 picks, right?
Including Pittsburgh, possibly.
That's me knocking on wood. That's me knocking on wood.
Definitely possible, right? From a Ravens standpoint, it's like you want them to take Thomas and you don't want them to take Thomas at the same time, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't want them to take one of my tackles, I can tell you that. But Thomas isn't going to last to 30 at this point. I don't see how. So, but if you're saying you don't want the Bengals to have Thomas, yeah, you're absolutely right. In some ways, is Thomas the same kind of a concern with a quarterback like Burrow, or is he such a concern to outrun a defense and be able to run to a spot that he can still make a weaker arm quarterback look good?
Yeah, I don't know. His catch radius is pretty wide, and I think he's a little bit of a better route runner than people give him credit for. I'm not saying he's the route running savant out here, but I think he's a little bit more nuanced to this route running than people give him credit for.
He had the greatest year of deep ball receiving in probably the history of college football this last year.
17 touchdowns, right?
And 19 total combined. 17 might be his total overall, but 19 total routes combined between post, corner, and go. 19 targets, 13 touchdowns. Just absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, he was certainly added to their list of weapons. I think that he doesn't address issues they have on the offensive side. Their system to me seems as dangerous as they are, flawed. And I think Mike McDonald's manner of defense exploited that in the last 2 years, which is one of the reasons that makes it difficult to see McDonald go. He did a nice job, if you ask me, of forcing Burrow to get rid of the ball quicker, and in some cases quicker than he needed to because of the threat of the pass rush. So Thomas, I don't know. I know that he would make them a dangerous team from the standpoint of a 17-game season, but our individual matchup against them, I don't think it makes them that much better than us at all.
Yeah, agreed. I like the Ravens' plan, coverage plan when it comes to keeping a lid on Burrow and Chase.
And Burrow does a great job of going through pre-snap and post-snap reads and progressions, but we, under McDonald at least, forced him to consistently, take the shorter route and have to convert 3rd and 4s, often and without giving up big plays. So maybe from the other side of that coin, Thomas is a guy who can make those big plays. So maybe it would be a drastic change in the dynamic between us.
It's been 2 years of Burrow really having to go to that sideways offense. Basically extension of the run game, a lot of wide receiver screens, a lot of quick passes out to the outside. And it just, the one time in the first game, first of all, he went 0 for 7 throwing over the middle, the one where Geno Stone had the interception, because that was part of that 0 for 7 on passes of 15 or more yards. But even they had, it was a good breakdown of that play out there. I forget who did it. It was one of the national guys who I really respect.
Benjamin Solak?
Yes, Ben Solak. Yeah. That's right. He did a breakdown of that play, and basically Geno Stone thought he saw something, but the truth of the matter was he was reading the quarterback the whole time. And it had this very complex, faceted play where essentially the X receiver was supposed to draw Stone off his spot and didn't do it because Stone was watching the quarterback.
Yeah, and thankfully Burrow didn't look there because he had left Stevens
alone. You're saying, yeah.
No. I mean, he lost Stevens, moving. But that's the point. It was a longer developing route that Burrow doesn't necessarily get to in terms of throwing it to the X to Jamar Chase. It was almost like a little bit like a post corner, but not exactly. And it was an inside release, and then he takes it back to the sideline deeper at 14, 16 yards. But Burrow didn't get to those routes against us because of the coverage adaptations post snap and the threat of the pass rush. Hopefully that dynamic remains with McDonald gone.
All right, the Bengals selection. Amarius Mims is off the board. Uh-oh.
So you got Mims and Brown now, right?
And Brown. They got Trenton Brown, Orlando Brown, and now Mims. Hopefully $3 fall on Cincinnati.
That looks like that'll solve their tackle problems, though, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
That's been a good area of weakness for the Ravens to exploit the last few years. So down to two, what I would call it, only 2 first-round graded tackles here between Fatano and Guyton. Man, this has been a dominated draft.
Yeah, so the math doesn't work for those guys that you have that you have highlighted, obviously.
For them to last to 30, you're saying?
Yeah, that math, it absolutely doesn't work. We had little hope before that pick, and then none now for the guys you have shaded.
So I guess 2 questions come up. Do you jump up as far as you need to get a Guyton or a Fatano in the early 20s, or do you maybe even jump up a few spots to get a Suamataia? Because
if you do, you got to do it here, right? Because you're not Pittsburgh, Miami, and now Jacksonville. They're not trading with you, right?
You're saying Jacksonville's definitely going to take a tackle?
No. I'm saying if you want to do so, you probably have to do it literally right now. I don't see Pittsburgh at 20, Miami at 21, or what is now Jacksonville at 23 being willing to trade with us so we can get a tackle. right?
I'm not sure why Jacksonville. Well, I mean, I can understand the Pittsburgh thing. I'm not sure why Jacksonville would be so concerned about an in conference trade as opposed to an in division trade. Maybe,
Yeah.
but it's. I think you make that trade if you think you get value, and the Ravens would have to show them value.
Yeah, I think Miami might go Graham Barton. Honestly, they have so many holes on the interior of their offensive line that they might go Graham Barton here. Well, not here,
Barton and
but
Morgan look good to me in terms of being available. I agree.
Well, at least we can see. At least I can see the Ravens on the bottom of the ticker now.
Pretty unbelievable. Not a single corner has been taken, right?
Nope, no corners.
I wonder, what that speaks to in terms of what the front offices across the league think. I don't think that it indicates they don't like the top 4 or 5, 6 guys. I wonder if it might mean they see less of a differential between the second and third tier guys with the first tier guys. Not that the first tier guys aren't also very good, but if they think that they in the second and third round they can get guys who can also come in and contribute, maybe less ball skills and less interceptions, et cetera, but guys who can still accomplish the things you ask them to execute.
This is a good question. Who do we not want the Steelers to draft? I think we don't want the Steelers to draft either Fatano or Guyton, and you can start there. But who do we want them to draft? I'm not sure. We might be, shooting ourselves another way if they get Thomas.
Running back. Let them draft a running back.
Sure. Get a kicker. Get a kicker here.
Yeah. No,
one of the guys.
Sorry, I was about to say Jackson Powers Johnson is a guy I wouldn't want to see in Pittsburgh. That's a Pittsburgh type of player right there.
That's a great point. I was just gonna say that's a guy that the Steelers fans have been talking about a lot this offseason as being a guy they could still get at number 20, and certainly appears that he'll be available there.
I feel like they always come in with such a good game plan defensively for us, regardless of our offensive coordinator. They do such a nice job of being prepared for us. I hope they don't improve their offensive or defensive line such that they're going to win that dynamic or that element of the game just by showing up. As much as I really think Thomas is an amazing player. I mean, let's be honest. The chances are someone in the AFC is going to draft a good receiver here. Buffalo's going receiver at 28.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh clearly could take a receiver or trade for one. I know there was, indications they were going to trade for Ayuk. Miami not going after a receiver. So those are the only other 3 AFC teams ahead of us.
You think the Rams take Johnny Newton to replace Aaron Donald here?
Yeah, I also really like the younger D tackle they've got too. But yeah, it's absolutely possible.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable thinking there, Mark. A pretty good chance that I think exactly that happens. And Fatano is still up there. It's interesting. Gordon McGinnis had a mock where he traded every pick he had to move up to 17 and get Fatano in a mock draft. He's just trying to make a point. I'm sure he wasn't really suggesting that would be a good idea to do, but that would have been a massive move to be sure.
Kind of unbelievable to look at the remaining picks here in the first round and wonder how far he's going to fall. If he gets past these two at 20 and 21, I'm talking about Fatano.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could end up at Dallas at 24, assuming that, Guyton is off the board there. It just depends on, I mean, someone's got to pick him at some point.
Someone has got to pick him. Oh, this happens every draft. Is you tend to get really bummed out by some series of picks by another team that really has put you in a bad position. Unfortunately, I think that's where the Ravens are right now.
I'll add one caveat to what you said, Ken. It happens most drafts for the Ravens because we're often drafting late. It doesn't happen most drafts for another 10, 12, 14 franchises across the league, right? Because they're never drafting mid-late 20s. So, but you're not wrong. I know some friends who are like, man, I'm going to take a nap and wake up around 10 o'clock because it doesn't even start for the Ravens until then.
Chris, great question. I don't know. The flag came up as being more serious late. I believe it is a knee injury. Have you guys heard that also about Fatano?
Yeah, it was a knee that got flagged. That it shouldn't impact his availability short term, but it might cause some issues long term.
Great point, Anand.
Mm-hmm.
I'd still take him. I mean, at a certain point, he's too good of a value not to take. I think people can always get second opinions. That's one flag from probably one team. Who knows what the Ravens doctors might say about it.
I think I missed a pick, guys. I think number 19 was made. That was not the Bengals, right? 19 was somebody else.
Jared Verse.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I thought they were going to go Newton there. I mean, it would be kind of just trying to replace Aaron Donald, but I thought they were going to go Newton for sure. I know they got that Turner kid who finished second in defensive rookie of the year voting last year, but I don't know. Maybe they like him as the centerpiece of their interior defensive line now.
Well, I've only got 9 guys remaining with a first round grade here, and we've got how many picks left to go? Still 13 picks. So unfortunately, pretty chalky board to date, with Fatano the only kind of out of order guy that remains.
Yeah, I don't know if Fatano gets past the Cowboys. If he does continue to fall. Because they were willing bet on Jalen Smith. And what was that, 2016, 2017? Jalen Smith, the linebacker out of Notre Dame, who had a severe knee injury at the end of his college career. And, Fatano doesn't even have that. He just has something that might be an issue. So I can definitely see Jerry Jones rolling the dice on, especially with somebody who's so, I think, kind of short-sighted like the Cowboys often tend to be. The whole all-in thing. Like, if you're really all-in, then, go get somebody who's going to be good immediately. Don't really worry about the long-term future. So, I don't know. I really want Fatano to the Ravens, though.
We haven't had that wild card pick yet. Somebody just picked way out of order, a third round pick or a late second round.
Strange. Cole Strange that you see
Cole Strange, Arnett, Cleveland Farrell getting picked way out of order in the first round even.
Yeah, he went top 4 to the Raiders and I think he's on the Niners now. Yeah, he signed a 2-year deal with the Niners, I think, last year.
Mayock's worst move of his career, probably. And I know a lot of that had to do with Gruden, but
I'm about to say, I think Mayock was more in charge of like day 3, maybe late day 2, and Gruden was really in charge of like rounds 1 through 3. I think Mayock was a day 3 guy, and he can really bang his chest on the Max Crosby's and Hunter Renfro's of the world more so than he can't do anything else.
All right, the Steelers pick is in here.
Wow, pretty quick.
Anybody betting on a particular player here? Let's hear it.
No, I'll say Fatano.
I hope they don't get Patano. I'm gonna be mad.
I worry it's JPJ, but yeah.
That's another good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I should be clear here. JPJ has a first round grade for me, so that's another one.
Or Graham Barton.
Or Newton. Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what some of these other teams have guys like Braswell and Isaac rated as, where they get picked. Not saying that I think they're better than, the two Robinsons, but those are guys that I think there's teams that probably have them rated higher than a lot of projections are.
I think Adisa and Chris Braswell go second round for sure.
I'm wondering where what I'm saying is I'm thinking it could be mid to early or second round than maybe a lot of us suspect.
Yeah, I think they're going before the Ravens are on the clock. I don't know. I think Adisa might make it down there.
Ravens, I thought DaCosta said it very well in the press conference a couple of weeks ago. He said, they didn't think that it was a really great, I think he said even average class for outside linebacker.
Yeah, he called it an average class, but then he also kind of went about that they're like kind of guys that can fit certain roles, which I agree too. You have a lot of situational pass rusher guys, a lot of tough edge setting guys. Nobody's really the total package outside of Latu and Turner, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is I see the pick is in for the Steelers. Does anybody know who it is yet?
It is in. Commission is walking to the podium.
Oh God. I just know it's gonna break my heart. Yeah, Cam Hayward up there.
It looks like Cam Hayward with them. Yeah.
He looks like an old man.
He does.
Like the way he's walking, it's like he had back surgery along with Commissioner Goodell.
Maybe him looking down like that, maybe he knows he's drafting his replacement.
That's a good point by Stitchy there. Maybe the Ravens will be happy sitting him for a year. Such a weird description on the supposed injury. I mean, what are they talking about? Something degenerative that wouldn't be a problem short term, but would be long term?
Yeah, kind of like the Todd Gurley thing, like where it's one of those things like, yeah, he'll be good for 2-3 years, but it may affect his long-term longevity.
Degenerative. Yeah, that was what I heard as well. So Fatano off the board of the Steelers. That is a really, really tough pick.
Todd Gurley tore an ACL too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like I could be wrong. Some of those injuries are things you can sustain or deal with as long as there's not a second injury on top of it. Like absent the ACL injury, are people saying that Todd Gurley wouldn't still have been able to be so productive for a couple of years? I don't know.
Yeah, so when you have multiple ligament issues, every human body is different, but certain injuries can exacerbate already pre-existing conditions. So if you already have a degenerative knee, another torn up knee could shave off another 2 to 3 years off of your career.
Yeah, it stress other parts of the leg or the hip or the knee, of course. Yeah,
exactly. That's
trickle down or trickle up.
Yeah, it's kind of why Odell Beckham isn't the same as he was, even though he suffered multiple knee injuries. The fact that they kind of wore down his knee to the point that he just doesn't have that same explosion that he used to have, and you can't hold up for a full season anymore.
All right, So let's take a look at this here for a second. If the next two selections, and let's talk, the next two selections go to number 21 Miami, number 22 Philadelphia. Philadelphia is probably the likely team that will not leave Guyton on the board for us.
Because they could sit him
Excuse me,
a year before behind Lane Johnson.
So the Ravens would really have to almost trade up to anyone right now to have a shot at Guyton. And I'm afraid that a player like Suamataia is also be off the board by 30 as well at this point. Boy, this really ended up being a great deep tackle draft that did not last for the Ravens.
I don't know. The Eagles could also go corner here, though. They could go Terry Arnold or Nate Wiggins. Or Cooper.
Tell us whenever you actually know that corner run is starting, Josh, because I want to bet on the hard 8 on that roll as well. I mean, seriously, it's nobody's shown the first inclination to take a corner yet, which is very frustrating.
Right.
All right, let me work on that for you. Anybody else who wants to take a shot at David's question, do it in terms of the probabilities of the three things. So it's taking a tackle at 30, trading back, or drafting anything else. And then you left out the possibility of moving up. But so we're going to say they don't move up because otherwise that's just to leave that out of the universe. Okay, so
so tackle, trade back, or draft another position, right?
Yeah.
All right. You want me to start, or somebody else want to start?
Let me make sure I got mine finished so I'm not copying off anybody. Yeah, okay, I'm ready to go. Go ahead, Brandon.
Okay. I have them taking a tackle at 30 at 10%. Trading back. Let's see. I have them at 25%.
So 65, draft another.
I'd say 5% trading up and 60 drafting elsewhere.
All right, that's
fine.
fine.
You got a lot of good. You still got Brian Thomas Jr. You still got all the corners. Yeah, and I mean, like I think even if all the tackles are gone, I think that means a good player is going to follow him in another position, and you'll be just fine.
All right. I love these thought experiment things when we do them. I'm also at 25, 25, 50. I didn't copy off you, Coach. I came up with that separately, but it really sucks that we're at that point here now. And I think the likelihood that they stay at offensive tackle is largely a reach for Suamataia or a consolation prize of Morgan, who, boy, that's pretty far down my list of potential left tackle replacements for Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah, I mean, the only person I want less than that is Patrick Paul in the first round.
You take Suamataia ahead of Morgan, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Me too.
I think there's also this dynamic with offensive line that exists with DBs, even though it's not happening now in this particular draft, such that there are guys who will be drafted in the second, third, and fourth round that will be able to perform. The problem is that they're not guys like the top 4 or 5 here at tackle that have all of the skills and all of the physical attributes to be able to come in and do what they're asked to do one-on-one.
Okay, here's what I'm doing with the additional 4 blue selections. I'm saying those guys, and I'm not sure, Newton is probably a yellow selection for me. And maybe JPJ is as well. Is if I'm talking about consolations for the Ravens, I would take either any of the yellow guys. really don't think the blue guys fit up. Frazier is a pure center, I believe. Barton is a guy who can't play tackle, and I wouldn't really be crazy about getting him, and definitely not as good a prospect as Powers to play on the inside. So those are the guys I would have left as, potential first-round guys for the Ravens, given that their board has been pretty well knocked out here with what's going on. That's 9 selections left, and we're still only at 21, so we actually need 12 players. Ravens are going to have a hard time trading back, by the way, if there's nobody to be selected there. You have to be somebody.
There's no quarterbacks left to trade up for. So unless somebody's trading up to take a tackle, and why would you want to bypass that unless you really don't like a guy like a Patrick Ball or Jordan Morgan? Like, I just don't see why. Like what team would be willing to trading up for anything at the bottom of the first round at this point? So unless it's a receiver that they really want late in the first round with the 5th-year option.
Okay, just had some good news. Chop Robinson of Penn State taken at number 21. I think that's a mild reach for him. Not that I don't like Chop Robinson. But what do you think?
Yeah, definitely a reach. I think he's a 2nd-round pick personally. But okay, I'm happy.
I'm just so confused with all their needs on the offensive line and an injury-prone quarterback that you go and you're already paying Bradley Chubb a bunch of money, and you're gonna have to pay Jalen Phillips a bunch of money. Why are you taking? Yeah,
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah, I don't get that one at all. Like, you could have JPJ or Graham Barton. You guys need help at tackle and that interior offensive line. I just don't get that at all.
Catches me by surprise. I agree.
It's like that when they took they took Deion Jordan, right? Like in 2012, 2013.
Number 3 overall, too.
Yeah, super reach.
Yeah. Number 3 overall. I don't think he had 3 sacks in his career.
Tragic.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's not a
it's
good
going to leave.
Him,
I mean, I think at this point.
Happy. Yeah.
Sorry. I think at this point with what's out there at corner, it's entirely possible that the Lions go corner because that is one of their needs, even though they addressed it in free agency. Amik Robinson's more of a nickel, and he can play some outside corner. He certainly did for the Raiders last year. It's entirely possible that if I don't know, is Guyton going to last, though? He's not getting past the Cowboys, right?
No. Well, I think let me just make this point because you're talking about 29 right now, and I want to talk about 23. I think if the Eagles do not take Guyton, and they're really running out the shot clocks, they're probably trying to make a trade right now. If the Eagles do not take him, I think the Ravens ought to try and trade with Minnesota and move up 23 and take Guyton.
You mean Jacksonville? Jacksonville.
I'm sorry, it's Jacksonville now. I think that would make all the sense in the world. And if it costs them a 3 this year, and I'd even maybe throw in a little bit of loose change, like maybe a 6 next year as well, I don't think that would be a problem at all. Now 6 it's almost going to be the last pick in the 6 rounds. They might not be that enticed by it, but I think that's a move you have to make to get your tackle this year.
I think the Eagles will go corner here. I mean, they got 2 old dudes on the outside, and Slay and Bradbury, who they ill-advisedly paid last year. So I could definitely see them taking a guy like Quinyon Mitchell here.
Yeah, agreed. I think they do.
Miami, man. I don't know what they're thinking.
So who's your number 1 quarterback coach? Now, I know we did the show together on corners, but I don't remember. Were you Terrion Arnold was number 1?
Oh, yeah, I had Arnold there. But, I mean, to me, it's neither here nor there. If you're a team at this point and you're looking at Wiggins, Arnold, I say DeJean, but DeJean apparently is the correct pronunciation. Any of those guys. I'm not as big of a fan of Quinyon Mitchell. It's not that I don't think he can play. I just didn't see as much film against high-level competition, obviously because of where he played. And when I did see it, I didn't see a guy who was just shutting down Marvin Harrison Jr. because they did play Ohio State, I think, in 2022.
Yeah,
so for me,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was like, he got some good reps against Marvin Harrison, but yeah, he definitely didn't shut him down.
Yeah, the guy who I thought played him extremely well was Cam Hart, from Notre Dame. I thought he played him incredible. He got away with a hold one time up the right sideline, but if it was me, I really like Arnold. I think Arnold can do everything, but I just love the pre-snap identification of McKinstry and his ability to play anybody who comes from Alabama's system. their cover 7 system, I think is ready to go generally.
Okay, so we got the Eagles at 22 here. I just want to make a point relative to James's comment here. The Eagles need a cornerback. I think you're exactly right, James. The reason they were so late on the shot clock here is that they really were trying to trade that pick, so they saw the big bulk of corners. And I think this actually increases the likelihood that they will take a corner at this selection. So they at least had a set of players that they were okay with, and they probably were trying to weigh in on the Ravens with the value of that last tackle or
Right.
Guyton, is being the last tackle, and trying to actually probably target them, and maybe the Chiefs in a bidding war. But whatever they got, it wasn't enough in terms of an offer, and they're picking a player. My bet would be this is not Guyton based on that. Although it's certainly possible they were going to be happy with Guyton or also a cornerback. They tried to trade Guyton and they couldn't get it done.
I think they're definitely going to go corner here. Something just tells me that their secondary was getting carved up last year with those two dudes back there. I mean, they kind of. I thought they were going to let Bradbury go because there was a point they were going to let both Bradbury and Slay go. And Slay was talking about he was almost a Raven, and both of those guys kind of fell off quick last year.
Really unbelievable to see what happened to their defense last year. And then they brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson after a year after not signing him a year ago. Just whatever happened in Philly defensively was just shocking.
Yeah, they should have hired Denard Wilson instead of who was the other defense coordinator that they hired. They ended up going with somebody. I forgot the
guy from Miami. The coach, he used the head coach from Denver.
I'm talking about the defensive coordinator they had last year. They went with somebody else to replace what's the guy's name? The Cardinals coach, Jonathan Gannon. They hired a different internal guy to replace Jonathan Gannon instead of going with Denard Wilson, even though his players wanted them to hire Denard Wilson, and then he ended up leaving for the Ravens.
Yeah, and then they took away play calling duties like halfway through the season, right?
Yeah, we have to Matt Patricia.
Yeah, Matt Patricia and his stink all over it.
His laminated sheets and colored pencils.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree, Stacy.
Pick actually has a big impact on the Ravens here.
Stacy's got a good point in the chat. He said it's unbelievable what's still on the board at corner. He's right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you think about the Ravens, I think the Ravens will have their pick. They may not have their pick of tackles, but I think they're going to have their pick of a solid corner at the end of the first round. So they'll have their pick of either Wiggins or McKinstry, maybe even Arnold still.
I mean, how do you pass up on that type of talent at 30? It doesn't.
They won't.
It doesn't seem like that seems like an 18 pick to me. That seems like in a normal draft, it seems like pick number 18.
Now, would you pick any of those corners over like say Guyton's gone and you got a guy like Suamata or Patrick Paul or Jordan Morgan? Would you still take corner?
Man, it's tough. It's tough to say yes because I personally thought Morgan played very well.
Second half of last year.
Yeah, the three games I watched particularly against Latu. Latu's sack was not against him; it was against the tight end out on the outside. So,
and he has some good reps against Brendan Trice too from Washington.
Yep.
People forget about Jordan Morgan. The guy tore his ACL pretty late in the 2022 season, and then he even admitted that he didn't feel quite himself until midway through last year. So if you compare his film from the first half of the season until the second half, you could tell he was definitely an uptick in his play. So I'm not too down on Jordan Morgan.
Okay, big news. So Quinyon Mitchell is the first corner off the board at number 22 to the Eagles. That leaves 23 to Jacksonville. I think this is the spot for a trade. I think they could make this move for effectively a third round. There might be a little bit of loose change involved, but effectively their number 93 pick, move up, get Tyler Guyton. And I don't see why Jacksonville would not at least entertain that trade. They're going to try and gouge the Ravens for everything they can get, but I don't know why they wouldn't entertain that trade. And it actually might be more difficult for the Chiefs to move up because the Chiefs probably have to trade multiple picks or trade their second round pick and get a pick in return, say, for that. So the Ravens may actually be in a better condition currency wise to make this trade with Jacksonville right here. But I think this is the window right on this pick here.
What did Jacksonville get? What were the two surplus picks or three that they got in the trade?
3. They got a 5 this year and a 3 and a 4 next year.
Yeah,
I think I don't know. I don't know if they're going to pass up on Brian Thomas Jr. again. Because they're not going to get him at 30 if the Buffalo has their chance at him. I think.
Yeah.
Well, if that doesn't happen, then my prediction will be Guyton will for certain be picked at either 24 by Dallas or 25 by Green Bay. Or potentially one of those teams could trade the pick to another team that wants it, but I would be shocked if Guyton makes it past 25.
Yeah, I'd be weird if Washington coming up and hopping us too, because they pick what 4th on Friday.
36 and 40. Yeah. They got 2.
Well, this is the place then, if you got to not just worry about people jumping you got to worry about how do I jump the other guy. And 23 is on the board. The last player at the position that I think represents a first round value is there. I don't want to repeat myself, but I just think this is the place they need to make a move and make the pick.
They're very patient though, right? Until they need to be.
Sure.
I'm still miffed about Fautano.
Stacy said, I don't want him. I want his O-line coach. That's a good call.
You can have that. That's not even cap dollars. So I'm behind any expenditure that they think is reasonable there. That's one thing I really dislike, blaming the head coach for basically everything that happens, including when your coaches leave. You hire a great staff. The deal is always it's temporary in nature with any coaches. Just look at all successful coaches in NFL history, how often they change jobs before they get their first head coaching gig. And it's every 2 years. I mean, they move around just constantly. It shouldn't be surprising to anyone that Harbaugh picks a great staff and then and the Jacksonville has made the pick. So this is probably not good for the Ravens.
In my experience, you hire guys because you want to see them get another job. You hire them,
sure,
especially if you know them personally. You hire them so that you do see them move up and improve their coaching ability, so they can get a better job. So that is the process. It's not part of the process. That is the process.
Yeah.
I'm always for having
good problems. Yeah.
Well, I don't think Dallas is going to trade this pick at 24.
Is it Thomas? Is it Thomas for Jacksonville? We
actually haven't seen the pick. This could be Guyton here, but it hasn't been named yet.
I think it's Thomas. They lost Ridley, right? They're an 11 personnel team. Soft personality as far as their offense. I think they're going receiver or corner. That's true. Good point, James. Good. James got a good point down there. Could be Arnold.
Even if it isn't Thomas going here to the Jags, which I'm not sure I'm that worried about, Thomas could end up being with the Bills. I wouldn't like that either, it being an AFC team. So you pick your poison. Thomas is going to go somewhere, certainly almost before the Ravens pick. So.
If you're
could be Arizona,
you want to trade up to Arizona and jump Buffalo for Thomas, even assuming Guyton's gone.
Wow.
I'd then be rearranging. I'd actually be thinking about, do we need to jump up for Suamata'i at that point? I mean, do you see Suamata'i definitely draft? I think first of all, I think he could be gone in the next 2 picks. Right there, he could be literally number 25. Now, admittedly, Dallas could take Barton. They could take another offensive lineman, but I think there's a good chance they'll go offensive line. Anyway, let's stop. Brian Thomas is correct. He's off the board at number 23 to Jacksonville.
Dallas is definitely in on a tackle. This is easy, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like I said, the Jets have all the tackles. They got Moses. They drafted one, and didn't they bring in the left tackle from Dallas?
Yeah, Tyron Smith. Yeah.
Dallas is in on a tackle, so I think we can just run this as if that's the pick, right?
Yeah. Is there a possibility it's Barton or who's a, flexible guy or a versatile guy who can play some tackle? I hope it is, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think if their plan is to move Tyler Smith to tackle, then it definitely could be Barton, because Barton protects better as a guard anyway. So, if that is indeed their plan, I mean, that was their plan initially until they found out that that Tyler Smith is a really good guard, but they still believe in his potential as a left tackle. Then that could be their plan here. I don't know, because they signed was it Steele, their current right tackle, to a pretty sizable contract. So if they were to take Guyton, would they be trying to flip him over to the left side or just have Steele go over to the left side? I'm not sure what their plan there would be.
Okay. Now here's another thing. We got 7 players. Here's what I want you guys to do. Rank the 7 remaining guys that I have up on the screen in orange or yellow in terms of the order you want them for number 30. Because the Ravens will have at least one of them available. I'm going to write it down here. All right. Who's got theirs ready?
I got mine ready, Ken.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I go Guyton, Suamataia, Wiggins, Arnold. There's pretty much all the corners left on the board, and then Newton. I think that's 7, right?
Okay, and I didn't include Suamataia in there, but I like your positioning of him. I'd make it Guyton, Arnold, Wiggins, Suamataia, DeJean, McKinstry, Newton.
Yeah, Newton would be like number 7 for me.
Yeah.
That's just if everybody else is gone, then stick and pick BPA.
It's okay. You shouldn't have been restricted to my players anyway. Do it any order you want, buddy. So you're perfectly good. How about you, Brandon? What do you like?
So I would go Guyton, Wiggins, Arnold, JPJ, Cooper, DeJean, Kool-Aid, and then Newton.
Okay. How about you, Coach?
I did Guyton 1, 2 through 4, any of the corners, and then Morgan, Barton, Paul.
Morgan, Barton, and Paul. Okay, so you have Paul significantly ahead of Suamataia then.
I'm not a fan of his, to be honest with you. That's why I haven't said anything so far. Excuse me. Yeah, I wasn't as big a fan of his watching the film. Admittedly, I only watched 2 games, though. So, it's a small sample size, so I'm not going to stamp it.
No problem, Mark. You pick whoever you want, buddy. You shouldn't be naming the top 7. You pick who the top 7 are. Yeah, Amagaji gives me some shivers up my spine in terms of who you get, and it might be the guy that's left at 62. He's a guy who has never played against people his own size, basically, in his entire life playing football. And obviously, most people don't, who are as big as he is when they play in high school. But then he goes to Yale and he plays in the Ivy League. And, he's look at the film of Amagaji. It is scary how much smaller those other CPA-sized defensive ends are from the rest of the Ivy League. So it's his context scares me a little bit. He does have what appears to be a pretty good tool set. What do you think about it, Coach? Any thoughts about Amagaji at 62?
I didn't watch a single game of it. I watched like 2 series, and I was like, I had to make a tactical decision on how many of those guys to watch. And I mean, so I decided not. I've seen the highlights on Twitter and stuff, and I mean, it doesn't look like a bad player to me at all. But I haven't seen enough to give a value judgment compared to other guys.
The cut up I watched was against Dartmouth, where they had the whole game. There's also, by the way, a cut up against Morgan State. I didn't realize Morgan State played Yale. That's a pretty good game for them. But he did look pretty good. The one thing I noted, which was the big thing in the end, was just a head-shaking ability to win every rep easily versus this level of competition, and some unusual size shape players for his opponents.
Yeah,
You mean smaller? You mean size, right? Sorry, go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
I just before I say one more thing, Brandon. It was some smaller, and there's a lot of like lean wide receiver size defensive ends, but there's also a couple of real thick guys who look more like defensive tackles that have been moved out to the edge to play against him.
Go ahead, Brandon. Sorry for interrupting me.
Oh, sure. No problem. No, I mean, I think Amagaji is. I think he's a little bit of a reach at 62, but I think if you trade back into the early to mid round of the 3rd round, I think that's a perfect pick.
Sounds about right to me.
We just had a trade made. I don't know if you've got numbers on the trade yet, Josh. You seem to be right on top of that, but the Lions have traded up to get number 24 away from Dallas, which may give a reprieve, or it may mean that Guyton is taken here. Don't know.
I think the Lions are trading up for a corner.
Yeah,
they're not taking no line. They're not taking no.
Yeah, they got Sewell. They just paid Sewell, and they got the other guy,
Decker.
Yeah.
So who were they trying to jump for a corner? Did they think the Green Bay was going to take a corner that they wanted, or Tampa?
Yeah, probably.
I guess Tampa, because they traded away Carlton Davis. So yeah, probably Tampa too. Yeah.
They got to really like the differentiation of that group then, or be concerned about one making it to 29. But there's still 4 corners on the board. If you didn't really see a lot of difference between them, you probably wouldn't make this trade.
Yeah, this is corner for the Lions. I mean, their DB group last year, their coverage group was really horrible, from an outside corner perspective. And they've upgraded the talent with free agency, but I'm quite sure they're drafting one here. It's got to be one of the outside Alabama guys, is my guess. But who knows? I guess. Oh yeah, maybe it's Cooper DeJean to John.
I don't know if they were picking between Alabama guys, they'd see. I knew they'd get an extra 3rd round pick. Yeah, the Cowboys picked up another 3rd. They really need it this year with some of the holes that they have on as far as premium positions. But I think if they're going to go Alabama guy, I think they're going to go Terry Arnold over Kool-Aid McKinstry. That's just my opinion, but
yeah, that's what I would think too. I mean, they've seriously upgraded the defense in the offseason. It's a great move for them. Would they trade away 73?
Yeah, one of the 3rds.
73 is what they got from the Vikings for the Hawkinson trade. Yeah.
Yep. So they give them 73. It says Cowboys trade 24 and 7th rounder in 2025 to Lions for 29 and 73 overall this year. So
that is a really big gain in JJ points for Dallas, because the difference between 29 and 24 is only 100 points. I'm missing something. Was there a pick that got returned? Because that's 225 JJ points for 100 points difference between 29.
So the Cowboys are sending 24 and a 7th rounder to the Lions. To the Lions, and the Lions are sending 29 and 73.
That's an unbelievable game for Dallas in this trade of this pick. The 7th rounder is worth essentially nothing. One JJ point.
And they must have saw their corner there that they wanted.
it's a remarkable value trade. It's just that's out of the ordinary. We do occasionally see one where it happens. Usually is up towards the top of the first round, where you have something that's completely misaligned like this. But usually getting full JJ, as I call it, is really skimming as much value as you possibly can. It already has a built-in premium that you pay.
When it comes to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, man, they for them it's like value be damned. If they're gonna get their guys, they're gonna go get their guys. Whether it's Jack Campbell in the first round last year, whether it's Jahmyr Gibbs in the top 15 last year, they're gonna get their guys. They're gonna get the guys no matter what nobody says about it, no matter what the JJ chart value says about it. When they see their Lions guys, they're gonna go get those guys.
Yeah, they've totally rebuilt that defense in the offseason. This seems obvious that it would be corner here. Unless they really, really like, Robinson out of Missouri. I know they brought in 2 other edge guys for visits that are projected as second, third round guys.
Yeah, that's an option too. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, they were mocked Robinson a few times this offseason.
I'm going to move Robinson into the yellow range just because I think he's a potential first-round selection when he does go. Certainly been mocked there a fair amount in the last week or so.
Yeah.
Terrion Arnold is the guy.
Okay.
So he's off the board. Your number 1 cornerback coach from our show.
I mean, they've absolutely taken their defense to another level. If you look at the talent they brought in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they also brought in DJ Reader as a defensive tackle. Just they've killed it defensively this year.
Yeah, I mean, some of those are bets on guys who get a little banged up, but when you reinforce your depth the way that they have, I think they'll be just fine. They still got Aleem McNeil on the interior and some other guys too.
All right, so who we got now? Packers?
Yep.
Yeah, Packers at 25, definitely a team that could draft a tackle here, could draft a lineman in general. So maybe this is a place if they for some reason didn't like Guyton, maybe this is a place where they go either Barton or Powers.
I don't know how many mock drafts you guys have done, but probably 80% of the ones I do, Cooper DeJean ends up in Green Bay.
Yeah, I definitely think the Packers would like Cooper just because I feel like Cooper DeJean would be what they thought Darnell Savage was going to be.
Great point.
Yeah.
That was
really
tough.
Good, really
Savage is kind of like a local guy from the area I'm from. So, I was rooting for him to do well there, but it just didn't work out.
So how you feeling, Ken, as far as about the tackle options right now, and given in relation to where the Ravens are picking? We're like 6 picks away here now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's still too much possibility of a trade up for my liking. We're now getting into the range where the Chiefs can afford to trade up once we get down to about 26, where they can trade 32 and their second round pick. Let me just confirm what they've got in the second round here. So they have 64 and 95, total 394 in value. I'm sorry, they have 32 and 95 is a total of 710 of value. So in theory, they can move up to 26, probably for sure, 25 possibly, and get their guys. So we're now in competition with the Chiefs for each of these picks the rest of the way down. That's not how I would like it. All right.
That's a really good point that Ryan makes in the comment section. He said all the other teams have been studying the Ravens. The last couple of drafts do kind of give me that feeling that there's teams that are playing things a little bit smarter, particularly the Lions.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that pick. And I know there were lots of people looking at the Lions picks, and they had a lot of early picks last year, and if they reordered them, you might end up with a reasonable set of selections. But
I thought it was the best draft in the draft last year.
Well, a lot of people didn't like Jack Campbell as early as he went. I thought he might go in the top 15, but a lot of people didn't like that.
Yeah, I thought he was probably top 25. I mean, the selection of picks they had last year, I don't know. It's tough for me to see another team that had so many rookies come in and immediately start and have an impact between Gibbs, Campbell, Laporta, who's damn near a historic tight end, and then Brian Branches. I don't know. I don't know what those people are looking at. They certainly weren't watching the games.
I think they made more from like a value standpoint. Like some people felt like they could have got Jack Campbell later, or if they would have flipped like where they got those players. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where they went. You know, like you got 4 impact players with your first 4 picks.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, I mean, whether whatever order they were picked in, like, let's put it this way: would we take their draft as Ravens fans from last year for this year? Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, you wouldn't really need Laporta if you got Likely and Andrews, but as far as like 4 guaranteed impact players, which are top 4 picks,
it's ridiculous.
It's
the best draft that I've seen since I've been paying attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's right up there to me with like 2018 Ravens and 2017 Saints.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The 2018 Ravens are in a different class. And that was just an unbelievable set. The one guy that got away from them in terms of Zach Sealer ended up being the first guy who got extended. It was the 7th round pick.
Right.
Yeah. Well, like their first 4 picks was Hurst, Lamar, Andrews, Brown, and 3 of those 4 guys were perennial Pro Bowlers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Hurst was the only miss, if you want to call him a miss.
Yeah, he's not as a complete miss because you got a return on him, but he was not a good pick. Derwin James was the guy.
Well,
where are we at here on the clock?
I would gladly trade.
Pick is in.
All things led to the Ravens drafting Lamar at 32. I'd pass on. I'd pass on Derwin James.
I mean, but the package they gave for Lamar kind of had nothing to do with the capital they got for trading back from Hurst, right? It was 2 2s in that year and in 2019, right? So they could have still got Lamar and taken Derwin James, right?
But do they trade up if they didn't have all of that capital that they got from those picks? I mean,
who knows?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it was really a second pick from next year, which was the incremental capital to get Lamar, though. So they would have lost out on some players later in that draft. But here's the Packers selection. Come on, Green Bay.
We've kind of normalized in terms of outside linebackers.
Jordan Morgan of Arizona. Actually, I really like that pick for the Packers.
Yeah, that made me take a gulp of my drink here. I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know you liked him more than we did, and Coach, I'll have a brief debate with you about Morgan, the tackle, but I have real problems with him there, including primarily being the not being an anchor guy.
I just didn't see it. I only watched, I only watched 3 games. I just didn't see that issue. So maybe I just watched different games from you. I mean, I'd love to be able to watch 6 or 8 games of 30 different guys, but it wasn't possible. When I saw him against Latu, 3 different snaps, 3 different moves that Latu ran, he handled all 3 of them. And so that maybe Latu doesn't have a bull rush that threatens that anchor like you're mentioning. Those 3 moves, I was like, whoa, let me go back and watch that again. And when I watched it again, I was like, oh wow, he really handled all 3 of them. That's what stuck out for me.
I watched the same game as you with the UCLA game. So let's talk about that one. So that's a great set of pass rushers he faced with Murphy, Latu, and they have a 4th guy, Carl Jones. But he blocked Murphy, and I don't know which one, but Murphy 12-6. So what I'm talking about there is he blocked him behind the pocket. Love to see a guy who can do that. He's a short length guy, so I want to see his feet be quick enough that he can still get that done and not get handed off the play. He did that to Latu as well, and that was one of the highlights of seeing Jordan Morgan. It definitely raised my opinion of him. But he got beaten on very badly on a Euro step by Latu, where he never touched him. And it's not like Latu did that to a lot of people. The other thing I saw very regularly in the game is he's giving ground to maintain his mirror. So he's not at all like the other monolithic tackles we see in this draft, which include Guyton, Mims, Fuaga, Fatano, Latham, Alt. Alt is a little bit of a more slender frame, but all the other guys, I mean, they are length and size guys who can beat you either with their feet when they can, or they can push you 12-6 because they're too long and too big for you to get around. Do have some necktie risk that goes with rushing the edge on them versus very bendy guys who are a little bit smaller. But in this guy, in this case, in Morgan's case, I think he's clearly a second-round draft pick, not a first. And I'm honestly very happy he's somebody else's problem. I'll be even that much more happy if the Ravens get either Guyton or Suamataia here in a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident the Ravens will get like one of those two guys. I mean, I think Dallas might take one of them, but I also think that one of them's still going to be there for the Ravens to take. I didn't think the Bills are trading back. I think they're going to take either an Adonai Mitchell or some other receiver here when they're on the clock, and I don't think that the Buccaneers are taking a tackle. So that kind of leaves Arizona. I think they're going to go defense.
Well, if you want to trade 113 now to move up in either 26 or 27, you might be able to do it. Would you do that?
With Arizona?
With either Arizona or Tampa Bay.
So.
Well, Tampa, the pick is in for them, so they already
corner or edge probably.
I
don't know. They're going Robinson here.
You think Darius Robinson?
I had them at Verse, but Verse didn't last that long. Like I said, we're kind of normalized now. 4 edge defenders finally taken. Is it going to be a 5th? That'd be pretty cool.
I hope Robinson goes tonight, just because he's there.
Yeah, I like the package of players Missouri had on defense this year. They were fun to watch.
Going back to Morgan for one more second, because the last few years, certainly since Ronnie's injury, he's been a guy who's given a lot of ground to mirror. It was even true in 2019. He's never been a great anchor guy. He's been a guy who makes that exchange of real estate to mirror his opponent very well. And Lamar actually reacted very well to that. Lamar trusted still that Stanley wasn't going to let his opponent get by and get his hands on him, and was able to work with bump pressure, move the pocket as necessary to the right, generally speaking, to make good use of that. Morgan is kind of a similar player in that respect. You're dealing with 3 inches shorter of arms almost, and a guy who is not in the same class, I don't think, in terms of the feet as Stanley either, which we wouldn't expect at this late in the draft relative to number 6 where Stanley was picked.
Stanley had more trouble with the anchor this year than 2022, even when he came back. But this year was shocking how bad the anchor was. It was significantly worse. It seemed like his strength was compromised, especially for that 6 or 7 game stretch where everyone was noticing it on social media and showing clips. It got to be kind of embarrassing for the guy.
All right, so now let's see. The pick is in at 26. Maybe we play our game again with the 4 players left, or any 4. Just name any 4 the order you would draft them in once number 26 is named. So you can be ready to do it right now. You can even write down your top 5 right now and just eliminate the one that gets drafted. I'm going to use that method.
I got mine.
All right, go ahead.
I got Guyton, Wiggins, DeJean, McKinstry. My top 4.
Yeah, I got Guyton, Wiggins, DeJean, JPJ, and Kool-Aid.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'll mess it up a little bit, and I'll go with Guyton, Suamataia, Wiggins, DeJean, Powers as 5, which is going to be cut to 4 after this next pick.
Yeah,
Hey,
Guyton
I forgot about
Go ahead.
Sumatia. Yeah, I forgot about Sumatia. Yeah, he'd be right after Guyton for me, then Wiggins.
Yeah, Guyton in the 3 corners, obviously. I'm pretty shocked here with DeJean if he gets through. We're at Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't think Arizona's taking him. I think Dallas has taken Guyton, you would expect, right?
Yeah, I'd like to jump up and make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, what does Arizona do if they're, if they were presumably in on like a Latu or something like that? I mean, they're
Graham Barton off the board. That is a break.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good one.
he's a good player.
Yeah.
It doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're kind of set at tackle right now, right? So they got focused more on interior. You got Cody Malk and Ryan Jensen just retired, so they got a vacancy at center, so it makes sense.
It doesn't surprise me.
I want to try and answer James's question here. Okay, so Wiggins is my number 1 corner, and I do have him going way higher in the draft than Guyton. So in a sense, I'd be advocating a big reach and am advocating a big reach for Guyton over Wiggins. The issue is entry barriers at offensive tackle and left tackle specifically are so high that you have to pay a premium for that position. And that's why, it's probably why we're seeing Guyton at all in the first round, to be frank, but Guyton is a reasonable left tackle possibility. He's actually had experience there in college as opposed to Mims and Latham, for example, who've only played on the right side. And so it is certainly a trade-off, but in the barriers to entry come into play, it's that next year you may have to give up a big premium to move up and take a left tackle, or they may just not be able to do it because there isn't any left tackle that fits into their price range, even when they give up all the draft capital they possibly can. So yes, I definitely, it's a relative reach to take Guyton over Wiggins, but I'd still be in favor of it.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ken, for sure.
Cardinals have made the pick here, so they didn't trade it, and this is going to mean Dallas goes ahead and picks at 29, I think. Well, Buffalo could trade us a pick, I guess, but
yeah.
Darius Robinson off the board from Missouri to the Arizona Cardinals. That's, I think, he's a good player, not a terrible pick by any stretch, but I don't think he really is a big obstacle to the Ravens at this point.
No, I'm just glad he didn't have to stay in that green room. It sucks being the last guy in there. You don't got to get picked. So good for him and his family.
He's a good player, man. Tough, physical, very, very mean up there up front. I liked his game. I didn't necessarily like him as a fit with the Ravens. Doesn't mean I didn't think he was a good player, but I didn't think he fit with what we already had there.
Yeah. He'd have to pretty much play
Robinson.
5 and rush for the Ravens, right? Because he's not a Sam, but he's the one guy I left on the rush list when I did the show with you, Josh, because most of the other guys that were like close to 300 pounds, like Darius Robinson is, I moved him into the IDL group.
Yeah, and he's the guy that kind of be that inside outside tweener, and he was the guy that was exclusively an inside dude. But prior to this last year, where they bumped him outside, and then he really improved his draft stock. And so, he's a guy that can do a little bit of everything for you. If you got like a hybrid front, like the Ravens do run, he's definitely a useful player. That's something I take in the first round, just because like that's not a first round skill set for the Ravens. Like you don't want to spend a first round pick on the part time player. But I definitely think he's going to be a difference maker in this league. Just I think he'd be better suited in the Cardinals 4-3 as a wide like a wide 9 or sometimes in rushing inside. Just not for the Ravens though.
Yeah, I thought his best rushes I thought I saw was interior stuff.
Yep,
not that I didn't like him, playing outside at all. I mean, to me in the NFL, he's probably a boundary side defensive end if he's playing D end. If he's playing, actual outside shade on a tackle or a tight end. That was a good player. I just didn't think he was a fit for us.
Yeah.
So So just kind of looking at this, at some point, I mean, it's guaranteed either Guyton, DeJean, or Wiggins are definitely falling to us. One of them will be here. So, I mean, I'll tell you, I'll be happy with any one of those guys as the pick.
100%.
Yeah. It's pretty obvious they're not going to trade up at this point, but I doubt they trade back. But I think any one of those guys as a pick is I think is a great pick and makes your team better.
Now, in order to trade with Buffalo, all they really need to give up is number 130. Now, I'm not saying that's nothing, but it's a lot less than it was to get up to 23. But they jump in 2 slots. It'll take their last pick of the 4th round to move up to 28 and get in front of Dallas. I'm in on that. And admittedly, I've been wrong so far, honestly, because Guyton has lasted on the board. But I'd make that move.
Would you make that move even if you have all 3 of those guys graded relatively close to each other? Like, would you make that move?
I'm absolutely 100% basing it on the fact that I want a left tackle taken care of. And I already kind of explained and admitted that I'm taking a reach to take Guyton over probably any of those 3 corners.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's what's necessary to get the left tackle position settled for the Ravens. So,
and there's enough good players there that trade back options. You know, I think someone in the chat just brought it up a minute ago. I think it was Jay. If there's a trade back option to move, just under a sheer math, perspective, if you trade back 6-8 spots, the Chiefs just traded up.
Chiefs just traded up to the
You know who that's for? Come on.
What if it was for a corner though?
No, it's not.
I doubt it because they can draft corners better than almost any other team in this league. But
So I'll tell you exactly what this trade is. They traded number 32, which was worth $590. They traded to Buffalo. They got come up with another $7 worth of value, and that would be probably 2 picks or an exchange of picks. So they gave up value that's slightly less than their 3rd round picks. They probably gave them their 3rd and then got a 4th or a 5th back in return. So Kansas City 32 gives up also 95. Buffalo gives up 28, and maybe let me pick a pick here. Maybe 163 would be my guess.
What if they're trading up for Sua Mataya, not Guyton? That'd be a throw for a loop.
Wow. Yeah.
That would be.
Chiefs sure gave up a lot.
It's an exchange of picks there, so I think the value is pretty similar. It's really only about a net of 40 JJ points.
I just mean 95. Yeah, 95, right?
Yeah, 95 in exchange for what I say, 128. So they're gonna move up.
130. I got 133. 133 and 248, and then the Bills are getting 32, 95, 221.
Okay, so the 221 for 228 is a complete wash.
Wash,
right? Yeah. So it's really 95 for 133. Did you say?
Yeah, 133.
Yes. Okay, it's basically 100%. That's sure it wasn't 131 because they have one.
I thought they were 1 pick ahead of us or 1 pick behind us. Sorry. When we're 130, they're 131. I thought.
Yeah, they're 131.
Or no, 130.
Wow. Yeah, I guess that's not.
No, 133. It was 133. Yeah.
Yeah, 133. Yeah.
Well, DeJean is from Iowa, so.
Here. Huh. Okay.
And certainly a ton of talent on the board. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable that you have this type of talent at corner on the board at 30.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can't say this has lacked excitement. This has been a pretty crazy first round. Some great news in terms of those quarterbacks, but wow.
It was chalk for a while, and then started getting a little crazy.
these lack of defensive players getting drafted. I think that's the story. Like, boy, they're really going offense here.
Who's the player who should be most upset about not getting drafted so far in this first round?
Wiggins or Faltanu?
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
Wiggins or Dejan. Or
Yeah.
Dejan.
Oh, yeah, good point.
How about Powers or Newton? Would Powers have expected to be a first round pick? I've seen him in and I've seen him out, but
Yeah, I've seen him mocked to like the Cowboys and the Steelers. That's about it. I think he kind of knew he was like a fringe first rounder. I think a guy like Nate Wiggins, especially after he ran that 40 at the combine,
Right.
I think he thought he would have went. Because a lot of people tend to be suckers for 40. So I think
He's like, what else has he got to do?
Yeah. I feel like if maybe he didn't, I don't know. Because it's part of me like if you watch him on tape, like 40 be damned. Like the guy, and I think some of it might be Emmanuel Forbes. Like people got scared off because of that because Forbes rose slight, and then he got taken in the top 20 last year and didn't exactly. I mean, it's just one season, but he didn't exactly have the best rookie season. But people might be a little scared off of taking those slight corners so early.
Jay, I want to address your question here for a second. So what if the Ravens did trade back? So let's say they traded back 6 spots with Washington. I don't know if Washington would be even amenable to this kind of thing. That's about an 8 JJ point difference. They could expect to pick up about pick number 107 in net value. Now, it wouldn't come as 107 because Washington doesn't have that pick. But they could get, an exchange of picks that would net them about 80 JJ points in value. Don't know if that would be worth it to the Ravens or not. Presumably, it would be. If it does the last pick of round 3, number 100, the Ravens toss them back a pick in round 5 that might make the approximate value there. That'd be a net of 74.6 JJ points instead of 80 if they traded with Washington. So Washington would give up 36 and 100 to the Ravens in exchange for 30 and 165. I could see it. I don't really love the idea, frankly, at this point. But they would probably get a good player still off one of the remaining yellow guys that I have on the list here still.
Right, and maybe maybe figure out a way to recoup a pick in that range that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, probably pretty good chance of that.
Is the pick in for the Chiefs?
Yeah, there's some kid at the stand announcing it right now. We've got the sound off if you can't guess. Xavier Worthy of Texas goes to the Chiefs.
Oh, wow.
There's an off-schedule pick. Not even on my top 10.
Reach.
My number 13 wide receiver.
They could have stayed at 32 and got him.
Yeah, they could have traded up from 64 and gotten him. Wow. So I thought it was crazy that people talk to him as a first round pick. If he ran a 4.25 as opposed to a 4.22, which is still absolutely blazing fast. Is anybody talking about a first round pick for him?
Yeah, I guess the only thing is Rashee Rice is probably going to be out for an extended period of time. I guess maybe that's what this is about. Maybe,
I'd rather have Adonai Mitchell.
Right. There's other guys there. Right. Yeah.
He's almost as fast, way bigger, and he can play that Rashee Rice role and then some. Xavier Worthy is kind of, you kind of got another Hollywood Brown. You just signed Hollywood Brown.
And they just signed Brown, right? Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Got 2 Hollywoods and no Rice.
I agree with you, though. 4.2 anything is fast, but, it seemed to they seem to be dead set on him because I remember them being linked to him 6 weeks ago.
Well, I saw them getting linked to him as soon as he ran that 4.2 at the combine. Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, him at 32. Before free agency, before they signed Hollywood. But no, I even after he signed Hollywood, I didn't put it past him because Hollywood's only on a 1-year contract anyways.
Right.
I'm just going to give couple of my notes on why I had him as low as I did at 13. Definitely a testing freak. So across the board, he was good, including his jumps and whatnot. But he really didn't translate that on the field to anything useful. Texas, 8.5 yards per target, which is just not anywhere near the top of the wide receiver group. I know they say, well, we got Mahomes, he's going to be way better, but didn't have a terrible situation at Texas playing opposite Nate Mitchell. You wouldn't think that would be a problem for him. He had a lot of good yak, only had a 93.6 passer rating throwing to him, though. So it's not that impressive a thing. My other problem was he's a slot guy, and so I thought for the Ravens he was not quite as good a pick. But anybody else have feelings about that he didn't really match up with the Ravens having big slots already? They like to play on the field, that Worthy as a slot receiver, and also having Brown, Zay,
Flowers.
Competing with outside Z snaps for him was just going to limit his role in some way.
Yeah. I agree, Ken. That's not the role that the Ravens needed at receiver, let alone in the first round coming into this draft. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they would have forgot like a Adonai Mitchell, or even like a Keon Coleman, or even like a Ricky Pearsall to an extent, but not a guy like Xavier Worthy now.
Yeah, I didn't think he was matching up with our team, but having said that, the deeper element is something that has been missing from our offense. It would be something nice to add, even though I didn't personally necessarily want Xavier Worthy. And there is a part of me that's kind of happy to know that the Chiefs traded up to get him. Sounds crazy. I didn't think he was a great matchup for what we needed with all of our other needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
even though I really like the player.
If you couldn't just guess there from my head there, Tyler Guyton just got taken by the Cowboys at number 29.
Yeah, of course.
Very frustrating. Ravens are on the clock, and I guess we'll see what happens here.
It's going to be cornerback or Kingsley Suamataia, one of the two. Well,
Yeah,
I guess one of the four, I guess.
Zero possibility of Powers here, guys. Anybody give a slim possibility, because he's a hell of a versatile.
I think it's possible. I think it's possible.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I doubt it, but I think it's possible.
I think what makes it less likely is the sheer talent that's there at corner. If that talent had been picked where it probably should have been, then we'd have another choice of tackle, obviously. But I think he's worthy of being picked in this range.
If Mike, sorry,
I'll just say, Stacy, I had a real big problem with Mitchell. Very poor yak receiver his entire career. And that's combined with a bunch of exaggeration over his size that was done during his college career. He's fairly much a possession, not heavy yak guy, and I'm just not that excited about him. I know a lot of other people have him higher. I have him a little lower on my board than others do.
They got some great options here. I mean, to start this off.
Well, the pick is in.
Wow.
Yeah. So if Mike Elias is in the war room with them, the pick's going to be DeJean.
Iowa, Ravens, come on.
I would not. The players I'd say who are non-zero right now, I would say Ladd McConkey is not zero here. There's a better than 0% chance of that. I'd say Powers is not zero. I'd say Newton, I'd have to say, is non-zero. It's an old position for them. All three of the top corners are non-zero. I think it'll be one of those six guys. Or Suamataia, yes. Sorry, number 7. Yeah.
Personally, I like Wiggins, but I couldn't argue if they took DeJean or even the tackle that you guys like better than I do. If they think extremely highly of him, then taking him here, would be justified.
Wiggins is the better player by far. We've been saying that now for the last hour and a half. He's the better player by far. The question is just barriers to entry at left tackle and whether or not the Ravens need to reach here as opposed to putting themselves in a really bad bind next year. Because they won't have the developmental option next year. They'll have to go out and find a tackle who can play there. I guess I like the idea of DeJean a little more than I did say yesterday, given the versatility maybe to take some of those back end snaps as a safety and also play on the outside. So warmed to that a little bit. I think the Ravens would use that defensive versatility well. And I like Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, those guys, all three of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got two guys on your board that most other people don't in Jackson and Haddon, but I went back and watched the film after meeting with you, and I'd already watched the Jackson film because he's a Maryland kid. I mean, those guys can play. There's premier talent available at corner in the second round too, so they don't have to go corner here.
Yeah, Haddon probably lasts until the third or the fourth. He's unknown.
Right,
But he had a
right.
7 quarterback rating against him for the entire season. 7.0.
I like having the board up for people that are watching too that maybe don't have access to a board or don't keep one themselves. It's smart to have that up.
I appreciate that you guys like this. I was thinking I didn't really want to focus on this the whole night because it's just my estimation of where people ought to fall, and yeah, it is what it is.
Maybe next year, any like if anyone has, like for example, Jackson, let's just say at corner, if some like my guy Melton, like maybe next year we just put that underneath that column.
Sure, we could do that. Let's Ravens pick is in here. Goodell's at the stand announcing it. There's probably other people who already know it. Nate Wiggins is the guy, medicals and all. He will be the guy they take. My number 1 corner in this entire draft. So
unbelievable.
Hurts to not get a tackle, but boy, what are the odds?
Wow.
Heck of a pick. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how high a guy like Kingsley Suamataia, Patrick Parr are going to go tomorrow. Like, kind of like I'm thinking like with like the first 5 picks maybe.
Yeah, if you want one of them, you better be in at 36 or 37.
Yeah, they're not getting past. I mean, even Washington bypasses them at what 30? What's that?
36 and 40.
36? Yeah, if they bypass them at 36. They're definitely going to take one at 40.
Right, absolutely.
Let's start talking about Wiggins here. Once around the horn on him. You want to start, Coach, because you did the show with me on him.
Just super athletic and very versatile. Again, I like a lot of the pre-snap stuff as well, where he doesn't give away coverage pre-snap. And there's this occasionally there's this. I don't know about you guys how you watch film, but we would always like pause it right before the snap. All right, what coverage do we think it is? Play, what coverage is it? So basically what we were doing as coaches was how many times are they showing us one coverage and they give us another look? Do we have to worry about this week? And Wiggins was one of those guys I felt like was always playing that high-level poker game with the receiver and the quarterback, giving them different looks and then the ability to execute all those different coverages too. I'm a big fan. I love the pick, even though, we didn't address O-line, which we all thought we were going to.
I got a few things to say. First of all, the 4.2840 was the fastest, I believe, at corner this year. Yes, it was. Here's what's really good. The metrics are very good for him. 4.3 yards per target in 2023. He's targeted a fair amount for that. So it's a high volume, 4.3 yards per target. It's not a low volume, which sometimes you'll see that kind of thing, and it'll mean it's an unstable level still. 1 touchdown allowed only with 2 interceptions, a 44.4 opposition passer rating. For those who aren't really familiar with passer rating, he was 10th best in the entire country, and that is 39.6 is what the passer rating would be if every pass were incomplete, and 158.3 is perfect. So 44.4 is fantastic, and certainly he was very close to the top of the class in that. I'd say this is a case where the coverage metrics corroborate outstanding physical gifts. That's my favorite thing. I'm a big fan of RAS score, Coach. You brought that up a lot on the thing, and he certainly has got outstanding things. The best thing of all is metrics corroborate physical gifts, and that was a big thing. Tez Walker beat him for 43 yards. That's one of the best receivers in this draft. He's close to my top 10 if he's not in it. He's not in the top 10, but he's close. But he had a 43-yard play against him in North Carolina. He later returned the favor with interception, a forced fumble in that game. But the second longest play that Wiggins gave up the entire season was for 18 yards. Not a bad tackle. And he's a very small guy. It's 173. So that is a concern that he might not be a good tackle guy. He's penalized just once the entire season. That corner who basically is too physically gifted for his opponents, because at the NFL level, you'll get juked a little bit. He'll have some penalties to start it out, but he's starting from a very good base of athleticism to avoid penalties. And my last note on Nate Wiggins, it is a fantasy to pick the Ravens. I'll have a shot at him at number 30.
Can I forgive me, I know my voice sounds terrible, but we're losing your mic a little bit. It's cutting in and out just a little bit.
Oh crap.
Yeah.
Did you hear me for that last little bit, or did you miss all?
Yeah, it just cut in and out some. I was going to try to interrupt you.
It was like tapping. It was like a tapping sound. It was like
All right, let me see if I can fix it, guys. I'll be right back.
No worries.
Yeah, I'll give my thoughts on Nate Wiggins in the meantime, man. I love the pick. I couldn't even imagine a month ago that he'd still be available at 30 overall. If you're telling me that the Ravens were going to come away with Nate Wiggins in this draft, I'm like, oh wow, they traded up 10 spots. Like that's like that. I just thought he was a lot to go in the top 25, if not the top 20. Yeah, he's a real fluid and instinctual corner. Great makeup speed, great hustle. Like that, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. And he's even though he's a little slender, he's scrappy and challenges receivers at the catch point. Everything you really want in the corner. Like I said, he'll put on some meat in the Ravens weight room and all that. But yeah, I'm happy about the pick. Like still a little bummed out they didn't come away with the tackle just because they were getting ganked, and I'm real sad about the Fautano thing still. But overall, that is definitely a plus for the Ravens.
Brandon, you're the last one. Take us home.
Yeah, sure. So, I think he had one of the best effort plays that I saw this offseason.
North Carolina game also.
Yeah, he was getting held on a big long run down, and receiver held him. He broke away from the hold and chased the running back down and forced a fumble right at the 1 yard line, right when he was about to cross the goal line. And play like that, that shows effort, that shows heart. That's that play probably made the Ravens fall in love with him right there. And I mean, he's a good cover guy. Yeah. Yes, the frame, he needs to put on some weight and, but I mean, 4.2 speed, 6'1". I mean, that's, those are the characteristics that you really want out of a corner. So like, I like the pick, you can't have enough corners. You do have, you have 1 more year of Stevens under contract. You have, and Marlon, you have to, you might be having to make a decision in a year or two. So getting a guy like this and having him fall, it's a great pick. Like excellent consolation prize, even if you don't get one of the top tackles.
Yep.
Agreed.
So I guess 31, Ricky Pearsall of Florida goes to the 49ers. That's a really nice value pick for them.
Wow.
It's interesting, Pearsall ahead of Ladd McConkey is maybe a little bit surprising to some people, but Pearsall, a hell of a ball player. He's going to be fine for them.
Yeah, I actually like Pearsall a little bit more than McConkey. I didn't view McConkey as a pure slot only guy like a lot of people do. I really like Pearsall's game. I thought he could do everything under the sun, and I feel like if he was 1 inch taller and a couple shades darker, he would have been a top 20 pick.
Right.
Yeah. The whole Ladd McConkey is a slot receiver. I was like, yeah, they're profiling right there.
There you go. Okay. All right. So we had Pearsall and Worthy, that there were 2 who were drafted that I didn't have any kind of a close to a first round grade on.
Look at the
Morgan,
receiver talent that's going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Leggett, you think the Ravens still maybe have a legitimate chance at Leggett with McConkey, Franklin, Burton, Mitchell, Wilson, and Leggett still all on the board?
Absolutely. I think they have more than a solid chance of Leggett at 62.
course, the pressure is really going to be on for them to probably trade up out of 62 and get a tackle if they can.
Get a tackle,
yeah. But
what's Carolina doing here?
I guess we'll have to wait until tomorrow.
No, the Carolina traded into pick number 32. There's no quarterback for them to take. They're not taking. Oh, they're going to take. They might take Leggett right here, right? Because we've heard a lot of rumors about him.
Or Mitchell or Coleman, either one.
Oh, could have been. Yeah, any of those.
Somebody to get a 5th-year option. I think it's a corner. Because Jace Horn's in his last year, right?
I think so. He's been so hurt.
Yeah, I think he's in his last year. A lot of interior offensive linemen going to go off the board tomorrow. Is it possible Leggett is still there at 62? I think 62 is a little bit of a stretch. My guess would be 54, 55.
Okay. I seriously would not be shocked if he's off the board right here, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, guys, have to say, really, really appreciated this. I seriously appreciate all the people who joined us and all these great comments and questions. I feel bad that we maybe didn't keep up with them as much as we should during the show, but just some great input here that I think has been terrific for this and made this show really good. Other guys, really appreciate having you on the as panelists this year, and of course, Coach as a co-host. Coach, I like that you're thinking already about next year, because I'm thinking about it too. In terms of this was a really high quality product, and I'd like to do it again with you next year for day one.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully this year I don't get sick the day of. So forgive me for my voice, acting so ridiculous. But it was fun, a whole lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Brandon, Josh, thanks for joining us and doing all you do for the show in general. Really appreciate it. And
yeah, thanks for having me, man. Like always.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'd have fun doing these and twist my arm to talk about the Ravens. Really.
I don't know about you guys. It's been tough to continually do draft stuff on my YouTube channel. Gotten to the point where I'm like, certainly people don't want to hear me talk about this again, so I'm glad there's a pick that's in, and there'll be more tomorrow, hopefully at least 2, to get Ravens fans excited.
So I'm seeing the things about my audio being up. Is my audio okay right now?
Wonderful now.
Okay, good. I'm sorry I didn't get that earlier, guys.
What did the Panthers do?
Pick is in, but it's not announced yet, which is really strange because they've been back from commercial for a while. So you figured they'd be up there announcing it. Maybe it's a case where the ESPN coverage needed the commercial time, but the NFL Network had sold their last spot or something, and they're waiting for them.
Maybe Rodgers getting his back stretched out back there.
Pretty crazy end of the draft there. I mean, Buffalo, Kansas City, and then Buffalo trading back to Carolina. So Carolina can get the 5th-year option on somebody. Is Carolina taking an offensive lineman?
Oh, I hope not.
They just paid a shit ton of guards.
Right. But they let Bozeman go.
Yeah, I think they're going receiver here. I don't know. JPJ, yeah, I guess if
Xavier Leggett is off the board at 32.
Darn.
Wow.
Yeah. I heard it said the last few days his stock has risen probably a full round since I did my wide receiver review. And it really looked like a great pick at 62, looked like intersection of need and value for the Ravens there, but it ain't happening. Oh boy.
Great pick for them.
Does seem that way. Yeah. All right, guys. Great show, folks out there who listen. Thanks so much in terms of your contributions to this show. Guys, have anything you want to plug in terms of what you're doing next? How about you? We'll start with you, Josh.
I'm currently writing some reaction stuff about this. I'm going to be doing the top remaining needs, which is going to be offensive tackle. It's going to be at the top of them. Going to be top remaining needs, some reaction stuff to this, and hopefully we see some more fireworks tomorrow.
And you are at Josh Reed 907 on Twitter.
Correct.
All right, and Brandon, you want to let people know where they can talk football with you?
Yeah, I'm a Brandon Croxton 5 on Twitter, and yeah, love to talk Ravens.
All right, Coach, what do you got coming up?
Well, I'm going to try to do a video this evening or tomorrow morning if my voice will comply. I doubt if it will. Then maybe I'll use an AI voice emulator. So, but man, yeah, exactly. I appreciate you having me on, man. It was a fun night. I agree with Josh. Like, now the Ravens trying to figure out not just who to address, as far as tackle, but how do they get that done? I guess plan B at this point, trying to address tackle at 62 or at some point earlier. Our needs seemed clear coming in. This is one of them, corner. I feel like we got two more to try to address in tackle and wide receiver.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Outstanding. And the pleasure is all mine in terms of the co-hosting role. Thank you very much for joining me for that. Coach.
Yeah. Thanks. Sorry, my voice wouldn't comply, man. I made it to about 10:30 and then it was done.
Good, insightful analysis all the way through. Other folks out there, I'm going to be doing a wrap-up show with Jordan Coe that should post tomorrow morning on this. This show will be available if anybody wants to re-listen to it. Looks like we had a record number of listens and views on this show for previous draft coverage, and I really appreciate that and appreciate all the great input from you folks. I guess that'll be it for tonight. We hope we'll see you back tomorrow. We'll be on just slightly after 7 p.m. New set of panelists tomorrow. Voss will be my co-host, my Friday morning GM partner. He's got a great sense of organizational things that we always love to spar a little bit over, but definitely a great sense of what's going on with the organization. We'll have some new folks on, including Jake Ferguson. Josh, you're back with us tomorrow night again. We appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
And we'll have Brad McGowan, who was in the comments here briefly. Brandon, you're back again for a portion of the night, is my understanding. Love to have you.
Yep.
And we'll have Fraser Tafar, my co-host from the Matchups show, and others. So very excited to continue this. It's a long draft weekend. This was a long night, a lot of consternation, but I think we can be pretty happy with what the Ravens did in total. Give me a 1 through 10. We'll close it out with this. Give me a 1 through 10 from everybody of how successful you think this first day was.
I'd say about a I give it about an 8. Nate Wiggins was really as good of a consolation prize as you could have asked for. At the same time, would you like them to be a little more aggressive trying to attack that tackle spot, especially with Fautanu falling, the other guys falling almost right into your lap? Yeah, but like I said, this is a pick that is both impactful for the present and for the future. You're going to have a nice 3-man rotation in 2024 and a potential starter, hopefully for a near Pro Bowler as soon as 2025. So who knows?
All right, I'll say Brandon. How about you? 1 through 10.
Yeah, I'd say it's an 8 or 8.5. I'd say, yeah, it's everything you just said. Like, I think you got great value out of the pick. It may be disappointing that you didn't get a top tackle, but I mean, you got arguably the best cover corner in the league. In the draft. So, I mean, that's it's still a premier position. It's still a need for the team. I think the team got better.
All right, how about you, Coach?
I mean, we'll keep going up the board. You went 8, 8.5. I'll say 9. I don't think you can really go 10 because to me, 10 would have been trading up earlier to grab whoever they thought was the best tackle in that 12 to 23 range, whatever the number was. and they were either unable or unwilling to do that. It sounds like from what Eric DaCosta said, they were, just going to sit and pick. I haven't read anything yet that says they were trying to trade up. So I'll say 9. I mean, Wiggins is a hell of a player. Not only does he win a lot of reps in man and zone and quarter split field coverage, he expects to. Like, you watch his snaps, he expects to win against the best guys. So I think we've got a potentially really great player here. Like Josh said, someone who is a potential Pro Bowl player on his first contract, if you ask me.
I'll go last then. I think I'm going to offset this in 2 ways. I think it's about a 7 overall. But here's what I say. I think they got a top 15 player in Wiggins, as I would call it. If you want to look at number 14 is 1100, the Ravens' value is at 620. They might have gotten 480 in incremental value. But I also think they lost some value in terms of what they're going to have to do in future years or future rounds of this draft to get the left tackle problem solved, which will cost them some of that back. So I while I want to be as positive in terms of what they got as I can be, I think that's the case. I do trust that the Ravens have checked out the medicals on Wiggins and believe he's a good gamble in terms of those at this point. But got a great player. Happy about that. Not happy about the potential non-solution of the left tackle problem, because I think it's going to be very hard to solve in round 2. All right, guys, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. We're going to call it a night, guys. Thanks for everyone who joined us, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
All right, thanks for having me, Ken. Have a good night.
Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Hope you had fun, man.